Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Had Telekinesis and a Fire User Twin? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. How can two people be so alike and yet so utterly different? That question perfectly captured the essence of the Midoriya twins. Identical emerald eyes, the same warm smiles, and closely same green hair, they were mirror images at first glance. But the moment they spoke or moved, their worlds diverged like parallel orbits, each pulling in its own direction. It was a crisp morning in Mizudafu, the sun filtering through the curtains of the Midoriya household, casting golden rays across the modest kitchen. The air was filled with the comforting aroma of freshly cooked rice and sizzling eggs, a staple of their daily routine. Inko Midoriya hummed a soft tune under her breath as she meticulously packed their bento boxes, her maternal love infusing every careful fold of the wrapping. It was a ritual born of necessity. No one in the family wanted to risk Izuku's infamous attempts at cooking, which often ended in minor disasters. Izuku sat hunched over the kitchen table, his freckled face illuminated by the glow of his phone screen. He was deep into yet another hero analysis video, his green eyes wide with unbridled fascination. You could almost see the gears turning in his brilliant mind, calculating trajectories, quirk efficiencies, and hypothetical battle strategies. "Izuku," Inko called without turning from the counter, her voice gentle but firm. "If you keep slouching like that, you'll turn into a turtle." He straightened up immediately, cheeks flushing a deep red. "Okay, Mom. Sorry." Before Inko could offer a satisfied smile, rapid footsteps echoed from the hallway, accompanied by a faint, acrid whiff of smoke like embers from a dying campfire. Takuto burst into the room, rubbing sleep from his eyes with one hand and adjusting his glasses on his face. His hair was shorter and neater than his brother's, but where Izuku carried a shy demeanor, Takuto wore a confident grin that seemed etched permanently on his face. Small, lazy flames in shades of teal flickered along his forearms, dancing harmlessly as if they'd woken up with him. "Takuto, arms, please," Inko said, still not needing to look back, mother's intuition at its finest. "They're under control, Mom," he grumbled, shaking his fists until the flames dimmed to mere embers. "Morning, everyone." "Good morning, dear," she replied with a warm smile. "Just don't set your uniform on fire. Again." "That was one time." "It was yesterday," Izuku muttered under his breath, stifling a chuckle. Takuto retaliated by flicking a grape across the table at him, earning a playful glare in return. Breakfast passed in a blur, Izuku scrolling through hero forums and jotting mental notes, Takuto wrestling with the mirror in a futile attempt to tame his hair before giving up after exactly 5 seconds. Soon enough, the twins grabbed their bags and headed out the door together, the morning sun warming their backs as they stepped into the bustling world outside. The twins sprinted down the sidewalk, backpacks bouncing wildly with each step. "We're gonna be late," Izuku complained, huffing for breath. "If you hadn't stopped to chat with that taiyaki vendor about what it'd be like to fight while shooting fire from your mouth." Takuto threw up his hands in mock innocence. "That was field research." "It was 7 in the morning." "Morning field research, then." They dashed through the park, where cherry blossom petals drifted lazily down, carpeting the path in soft pink like a scene from one of their mom's favorite soap operas. Izuku was tempted to comment on the poetic spring weather, but Takuto picked up speed, probably to dodge any more scolding. As they hit a busier avenue, the sidewalk came to a dead stop. A thick crowd blocked the way, murmuring and craning necks, while police officers held up caution tape and called for calm. "What's going on?" Takuto asked, stretching to see overheads. Izuku stood on tiptoe, but all he caught were glimpses of hair and shoulders. Then, a thunderous metallic clang rang out. Up on the elevated metro tracks, a massive man lumbered forward, his muscles grotesquely swollen, skin stretched taut like overinflated rubber, ripped jeans and a black jacket straining at the seams. Dreadlocks whipped with every chaotic step, and his braided goatee quivered as he yanked another steel beam from the rails. The beam slipped from his giant grip, plummeting straight toward the street below. "Look out," someone shouted. But in a blink, Death Arms charged in, arms raised, catching the girder like it was just another day at the office. "It's Death Arms," a civilian exclaimed. "The punch hero who delivers justice with raw physical power. Everyone, this area's dangerous. Stay back." Backdraft ordered, summoning walls of water that rippled like living barriers. "It's the rescue specialist, Backdraft." "He's here too," someone else said, impressed. More murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Man, turning into a monster is a cool quirk. Wonder what he did. Heard he mugged someone, but lost control when cornered. A quirk like that on a thief. What a waste." Izuku desperately tried to get a better view, squeezing between two people without so much as an "excuse me." Takuto sighed. Fine, go ahead, nerd." "I'm not a nerd, I just want to see what's happening." "Yeah, sure." The guy with binders full of rising heroes, favorite techniques, and alternate costumes is totally not a nerd. Izuku ignored him. Nearby, a citizen argued on his phone, "Boss, I swear, I'm gonna be late. There's this giant blocking the whole street, I can't get through." Suddenly, a blur shot overhead like an arrow. A group of fangirls squealed. "Aya! Go Kamui! You got this, Kamui! Crush him!" The figure perched on a lamppost, light glinting off his wooden armor. "Kamui Woods." The giant villain roared, "Stay away from me." Kamui leaped, swinging from branches sprouting from his arms like living vines. Izuku finally pushed to the front. His eyes lit up. Who's fighting? It's Kamui Woods, the rising star hero." The man beside him chuckled. "You ask, but you already know. Fanboy." Izuku flushed a bit, but Takuto chimed in, "Oh, he's a fan all right. Studied for hero entrance exams before he could even spell entrance." Izuku elbowed him, cheeks burning. Kamui landed on a beam above the villain. "Illegal quirk used during rush hour. Assault and robbery. You're the embodiment of evil." One arm twisted, branches coiling and growing. "Look at that." Izuku murmured, enchanted. "Go, Treeman, do something cool," a bystander cheered. Izuku saw Kamui raising his arm for the finisher. "This is preemptive," Kamui mouthed along. Lacquer Izuku continues. "Chain prison," they said in unison. Takuto lightly smacked his brother's shoulder. "Oh man, did you two rehearse that?" But before Kamui could strike, a massive shadow loomed from the side. "Canyon Cannon," a female voice bellowed. A colossal woman soared in with a flying kick, slamming the villain like he was an empty soda can. Photographers erupted in excitement. Look, look, look. Newbie spotted. Perfect angle. Perfect angle." She landed, towering and posing with hands on hips. "Today is my debut. Call me lady, and yes, the pleasure is all mine." The crowd cheered and stifled giggles. Kamui stood frozen. "See, she stole my spotlight." Empty Lady shrank slowly back to normal size. Police swiftly moved in to cuff the villain, who also reverted to human form. Izuku was still mentally noting every detail, face alight with awe. Takuto tugged his backpack. "Hey, Izuku, snap out of it. Class won't wait for your thesis on Treeman 2.0. It's not a thesis, it's just observation. Write it solo later, Professor." They bolted off again, vanishing into the dispersing crowd. The walk to school was a familiar path, lined with cherry blossom trees just beginning to bud and the hum of early commuters. Takuto matched his brother's stride, tapping his foot in rhythm to some internal beat, his flames occasionally sparking in excitement. "So," Takuto started, nudging Izuku with his elbow, "have you finally picked a hero name yet?" Izuku took a deep breath, a spark of excitement replacing his usual self-doubt. He'd spent nights analyzing options, and last night, it had clicked names that not only fit their quirks but could brand them as an unstoppable duo. He hadn't told Takuto yet, planning to discuss it later when they could brainstorm tweaks. "Why yeah, actually. I did. But let's talk about it after school? I want your input before I finalize." Takuto raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Ooh, mysterious. Alright, but it better be badass. Don't you think about anything else besides that? Actually, forget it, you don't think at all, huh? And you overthink everything. How about just following your instincts and living? That's why we make a great team. Balance and all that. The world around them buzzed with quirk activity. A woman with delicate wings fluttering to retrieve a fallen bag from a high branch. A man whose body glowed like a lantern guiding a group of giggling elementary kids across the street. Izuku absorbed it all with starry-eyed wonder, his mind racing with possibilities. Takuto, on the other hand, watched with a fiery gleam in his eyes, his hands itching to join the action, flames flickering subtly at his fingertips as if eager to ignite. And then, as inevitable as the morning alarm, Bakugo Katsuki stormed into view. His backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, a smirk twisting his lips, and tiny explosions crackling from his palms like irritated fireworks. "Sup, Dekus?" he snarled, blocking their path. "You two better not get in my way today." Takuto responded before Izuku could even open his mouth, his voice laced with easy defiance. "We'll beat you there, Katsuki. Try to keep up." Bakugo clicked his tongue in annoyance. "I'd like to see that. Head torch and Deku notebook won't even make it past UA's gates." Izuku swallowed hard, the banter feeling like an old, worn-out script. "Gee, good morning to you too, Kaken." Bakugo paused, eyeing them both with a mix of disdain and something almost like reluctant concern. He huffed. Just don't die before the entrance exam starts." With that, he shoved past them and continued on his way. Takuto raised an eyebrow, watching him go. "He cares. Deep down." "Yeah, he just hides it terribly," Izuku agreed, a small smile breaking through his nervousness. School dragged on as usual, lectures about future careers, the teacher droning about UA High's prestige, and crumpled notes flying across the classroom courtesy of Katsuki, who scribbled taunts like, "You'll be crawling behind me," in bold, explosive letters. It was all par for the course in their quirk-filled world. On the way home, the twins retraced their steps through the quiet neighborhood, chatting about the day's highlights. But midway, Izuku froze, his senses tingling with an unnatural awareness. "Taku! HM? What's up? Did you feel that?" Takuto paused, tuning out the constant warmth from his own flames. At first, nothing, but then, a faint, wrong vibe crept in. A thick, sewage-like stench hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. The nearby manhole cover rattled ominously. In an instant, a grotesque mass of green sludge erupted from the sewer, viscous and bubbling, with sickly yellow eyes and a twisted, toothy grin. "Two bodies. Perfect for hiding in," it gurgled, its voice like wet gravel. Izuku's heart pounded, but his mind sharpened like a blade's short breaths, measured steps. The air around him hummed with latent energy, his telekinesis quirk buzzing just beneath his skin, ready to unleash. "Taku, back up," he whispered urgently. "No way in hell," Takuto growled, stepping forward instinctively. His arms ignited with teal flames, adopting a defensive stance. He wasn't cleared for full combat use of his quirk yet, but with fire-wreathed fists, he could intimidate most threats. The sludge villain lunged, a tidal wave of ooze aiming to engulf them. Takuto raised his arms, flames roaring in a protective barrier not to attack, but to sear and repel. The heat forced the slime back momentarily, but the mass's sheer force shoved him off balance. Izuku reacted on pure instinct. Using his mind, he pulled Takuto's shirt and yanking him back with a surge of telekinetic force. The air rippled like an invisible wave, shoving the villain aside for a precious second. "Demon it," Takuto snarled through gritted teeth. "This thing wants to possess us." The sludge reformed, grinning wider. "Just for a little while." And then, a thunderous voice shattered the chaos. "I am here." The ground trembled. In the next heartbeat, Detroit smash. A whirlwind of power erupted, wind howling, dust swirling, sludge splattering in every direction like defeated confetti. There he stood, all might. Not the legend, not the symbol of peace, the real man, towering and grinning as if dismantling villains was as routine as brushing his teeth. "Young ones, are you all right?" he boomed, his voice carrying that unmistakable heroic timbre. Izuku's jaw dropped, words failing him entirely. Takuto stood frozen, his flames sputtering out in sheer awe. Good job staying out of harm's way. All Might continued with a thumbs up. But leave this sort of thing to the pros. He swiftly bottled up the villain's remnants in soda bottles, let out a hearty laugh, and with a mighty leap, vanished into the sky. Silence descended, broken only by the twins' ragged breaths. Takuto exhaled shakily, still processing. Aizu. I think I'm gonna pass out. No, you're not. I really might. If you do, I'm leaving you here for the pigeons. Izuku sank to the ground, hugging his knees as laughter and tremors mixed in his body. The adrenaline crash hit hard, but so did the exhilaration. Takuto glanced skyward, a grin slowly forming. If this is our first real step toward being heroes, we're gonna need a lot of coffee to keep up. Izuku could only nod, his mind already replaying the encounter in vivid detail. And that was the day everything truly shifted, not just because All Might had appeared like a force of nature, but because, for the first time, the Midoriya twins felt the hero world staring right back at them, beckoning them forward. The world fell eerily silent after All Might vanished into the sky. Too silent. The Midoriya twins trudged homeward with barely a word between them. The glow of their encounter with the symbol of peace still burned in their eyes, a lingering spark that kept their muscles taut with residual adrenaline. The streets of Mizudafu, usually bustling with afternoon energy, felt muted, as if the city itself was catching its breath. I still can't believe it, Izuku murmured for what felt like the 10th time since they'd left that alley. His voice was hushed, reverent. All Might, the All Might, I know, Aizu, Takuto replied, but his tone lacked its usual fiery edge. It was uncharacteristically serious, almost contemplative. But don't forget what happened before he showed up. Izuku blinked, still riding the high of the euphoria, his mind replaying the hero's thunderous arrival on loop. We could have died, Takuto continued, kicking a loose pebble across the sidewalk. The flames on his forearms flickered faintly, a subconscious echo of the sludge trying to wrap around him like a suffocating embrace. We need to get stronger. Way stronger. Izuku nodded, drawing in a deep breath. On the outside, he was the shy, nervous kid everyone knew, freckles dotting his cheeks like stars, eyes wide with perpetual wonder. But inside, his mind was a whirlwind, already churning through tactics, training regimens, physical routines, and contingency plans. He opened his mouth to speak. I think I know where we can star. A deafening boom shattered the air, cutting through the street like a knife. The shockwave hit them right in the gut, vibrating through their bones. Takuto's arms shot up instinctively, teal flames igniting in a protective flare. Izuku whipped his head toward the source, his heart slamming against his ribs. That was an explosion, he gasped, breathless. Aha! A brief, heavy silence hung between them, thick with unspoken questions. And then, Izuku took the first step in the wrong direction, or perhaps the right one. Izuku! Takuto called, already knowing exactly what was racing through his brother's mind. Izuku glanced back, his eyes gleaming with a volatile mix of fear and determination. If we want to be heroes, we have to act like heroes. We also have to stay alive, Takuto grumbled, but he was already moving too, his flames crackling with reluctant energy. DM it. They broke into a run. Meanwhile, All Might burst through the doors of the police station, his heroic aura still radiating like a beacon until a harsh cough racked his body, deflating him into his gaunt, skeletal form like a shadow wilting under the sun. Well, time to hand this guy over, he muttered to himself, rummaging through his pockets. But nothing. Empty. Where is he? All Might wondered aloud, patting himself down frantically. Ground, counter, pockets again. Nothing. His eyes widened in dawning horror. The bottle. Silence. And then, no, he shouted, clutching his head in panic. It fell out. Damn it. I must have. Oh no, it must have dropped on the way here, but where? He stumbled back toward the door, desperation fueling his labored breaths. Please. Let no one have tampered with it. Minutes earlier, in a nondescript alley, a soda bottle rolled lazily until it clinked against the wall. Clang! Katsuki Bakugo was stomping through, hands shoved behind his head, muttering complaints about his training, the world, and everything in between. So much crap on these streets, He kicked the bottle hard. It sailed a couple of meters, spinning wildly, just enough to loosen the cap from the inside. A dark bubble of sludge began to pulse, swelling ominously. Bakugo turned, irritated. What the? The mass erupted outward in a liquid surge. Ah, explosive boy, the viscous voice slithered. You'll be perfect. Bakugo's eyes widened for a split second before he was engulfed. What the hell am I? The alley went quiet. 4-5 agonizing seconds. Then another boom rocked the city. Back with Izuku and Takuto. By the time the brothers arrived, a dense crowd had formed, people shoving and murmuring, phones held high to capture the chaos. Nearby heroes were on the scene, backdraft hosing down flames with water streams, MT Lady lamenting her size in the narrow space, Kamui Woods holding back the spectators with wooden vines, and Death Arms barking orders, but none were diving in. My quirk doesn't work against that thing. I can't get close, I'm made of wood. I won't fit in there, I need a wider street. Murmurs of fear and confusion rippled through the onlookers, smoke thickening the air like a veil. Izuku's chest tightened painfully. Then, through a gap in the crowd, he saw it. And froze. But it can't be. Takuto spotted it too. The sludge villain. The same one. And trapped within, clawing and gasping for air, Katsuki Bakugo. Wait, wasn't All Might chasing this guy earlier today? Someone in the crowd muttered. All Might? He's in the city. Izuku and Takuto exchanged bewildered glances. But, Takuto said, scanning the area frantically. Didn't All Might capture this guy? He must have escaped, Izuku replied, the words tasting heavy on his tongue. From All Might. How? I don't know. But it's the only explanation. There's no way All Might would have let him go on purpose, Izuku said, frustration creeping into his voice. Aizu, he's number. What? There's no way this slime ball slips away from him just like that. They stared at the heroes on the scene, who stood by without making a real move to free Katsuki. It was undeniable, the pros weren't acting. They weren't charging in. They were waiting. And Katsuki was suffocating. Izuku's heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the screams. Is this what a hero does? They're not. They're not going to do anything. And we are. Takuto shot back with sarcasm, but it lacked conviction. He already knew the answer. Izuku looked at Katsuki again. Not as a rival. Not as the kid who yelled, shoved, and called him useless. Now he was just a boy, terrified and fighting for breath. For the first time in his life, Izuku didn't overthink. He just ran. Izuku! Izuku darted past the heroes, slipping under an outstretched arm and plunging into the alley. Takuto stood frozen for 2 seconds. Just 2. But to him, it felt like an eternity. Da crap. And he bolted after. Something unexpected was happening there. The one who usually thinks acted without thinking, and the one who's usually impulsive was thinking too much. That day definitely went beyond the limits of normal. Hey, you two. Are you insane? Death Arms bellowed, appalled by their recklessness. Izuku raised his hand, telekinetic energy humming around his fingers as he tried to yank the trapped body free. The sludge whirled toward him, irritated and ravenous. Again! A tentacle whipped out like a lash. Takuto saw it, too far to reach physically. Fear exploded inside him, fused with something fiercer. You, stay away. From my brother. The world seemed to inhale. Then fire erupted from Takuto's arm in an instinctive jet, body deciding before mind. A sharp, direct blast that seared the tentacle midair, dropping it in a burst of heat. Everyone froze. Since when can you do that? Izuku yelled. I don't know. Takuto shouted back, equal parts terrified and furious. Whatever you did, keep doing it. Katsuki roared, choked and raging. Shut up. Takuto snapped, already firing again. Together without a plan, without preparation, just raw instinct and stubborn grit, they began freeing Bakugo. The crowd went still. The heroes halted. People were stunned. Two kids were doing what the adults couldn't. And they were winning. Izuku pulled with everything he had, telekinesis straining like an invisible rope. Takuto burned tentacle after tentacle, arms ablaze, uncontrolled, panting heavily. Almost. Got it. With one final heave, Katsuki tumbled out, collapsing to his knees, spitting sludge and cursing the air blue. The villain roared, "I'll kill you all." It unleashed a massive assault, barreling straight at them. Izuku tried to raise his hands. Takuto essayed in air, flames faltering. And then, "I've finally found you." The world quaked. All might appeared like lightning, the air imploding around him. The villain recoiled in sheer desperation at the man's overwhelming presence, its attack stalling mid-lunge. "What on earth did you two think you were doing?" After a quick exchange, All Might delivered a punch that extinguished Takuto's flames, ruffled Izuku's hair, hurled the villain skyward, and altered the weather itself. Clouds parted. Winds howled. Absolute silence. Applause. Cheers. Pandemonium. The heroes exhaled in relief. Soon after, the boys sat in the back of an ambulance for a quick checkup. No serious injuries, thankfully, and a stern lecture from the pros. But not just that. "You two are out of your minds," Death Arms scolded minutes later. "Crazy. You could have died." Kamui Woods crossed his arms. "Don't ever do that again. Ever." But he took a deep breath. It was brave. Even Backdraft wiped away tears. All Might approached them privately, no audience, no exaggerated grin. Izuku saw genuine concern in his eyes. "Young ones. You were reckless," he said softly. "But you were also true heroes." Izuku fought back tears. Takuto pretended it was sweat stinging his eyes. They were released shortly after. Finally heading home, everything felt surreal. How would they explain this to their mom? It was amid that uncertainty that they heard footsteps behind them. Turning, they faced Katsuki Bakugo, looking anything but pleased. "Just so we're clear, I didn't ask for your help. I could have handled it myself, you idiots. You didn't do squat, got it?" Takuto raised an eyebrow and flipped him off, while Izuku just offered a weary smile and sighed. "We know, Kaken." Bakugo huffed a umph, turned on his heel, and stalked away. "You know, that guy needs to chill out a bit," Takuto remarked casually. Izuku chuckled. "Just a bit? Huh, but you're right. I just wish he'd stop being so petty." As they walked on, they didn't notice Katsuki glance back for a second. His expression a tangled mix of determination, confusion, and regret. The sun hung low, painting the sky in vibrant oranges and purples. Sirens had faded. Adrenaline too. In its place, a strange, heavy exhaustion. But warm. For a few minutes, neither spoke, just the rhythm of footsteps on the pavement and a faint tremor in their muscles. A reminder of what they'd done. Izuku flexed his hands, still feeling the echo of his telekinesis buzzing in his fingertips. Takuto blew on his own, as if they still smoldered. Until Izuku took a deep breath and nudged his brother's arm. "Taku." Going back to that talk about getting stronger. I think I have an idea." Takuto arched a brow. "If it's weightlifting, I'm lying down right here and never getting up." No, Izuku laughed softly. "It's Dagoba Beach." Takuto stopped dead. Turned his head slowly. "That trash heap beach?" "Yeah. It's buried in garbage. I read about community cleanups, and I figured if we trained there lifting stuff, hauling weights, clearing it out, we could build strength and help the city at the same time." Takuto grimaced like he'd bitten into raw ginger. "So you're suggesting we train by lugging fridges, tires, old couches, car doors, stinking fish-smelling debris? It's solid training." Izuku insisted, waving his hands with tired enthusiasm. "Strength, endurance, DSPLN, and..." Takuto held up a hand, cutting him off. "I hate that this makes sense." Izuku grinned, exhausted, genuine, hopeful. "So you're in? Only if I get to blow something up afterward." And I want to figure out more about this new trick with my quirk, Takuto replied without missing a beat. Oh right. I almost forgot that happened. When we get home, I'll help analyze it, Izuku said, his mind already worrying with ways to maximize his brother's potential. And there he goes again, Mr. Quirk Analysis, Takuto teased. They walked a bit more. Silence returned, but lighter now. The silence of shared madness survived. Until Takuto grumbled, okay. Real question. How do we tell Mom about this? Izuku froze mid-step. Right. Because let me get this straight. Takuto started counting on his fingers. We vanished for hours. Showed up all scratched up, reeking of smoke and sewer. And we literally fought a villain that needed all might to handle. Don't say it like that, I'm starting to sweat, Izuku muttered, already perspiring. She's gonna freak, Takuto stated flatly. We're in for an epic lecture. I carried you both inside me, and this is what you do. Izuku buried his face in his hands. We tell her. Calmly? Skip the traumatic details? Aizu, I've still got slime in my hair, Takuto deadpanned. I think we've lost the right to skip details. They laughed. Nervously. A lot. Then Izuku gazed at the sky, letting the breeze cool his face. We're getting into UA. It wasn't a question. It was a vow. Takuto didn't hesitate. I know. And today, we proved we can. It wasn't luck, it was us. Actually, it was 28% luck and a bit of. Shut up. Takuto cut him off immediately. Sorry, hee. Two brothers, smelling of smoke and muck, trudging with heavy steps and light souls. They weren't heroes yet, but the world had glimpsed the seeds of greatness in them. The rhythmic crash of waves against the rocky shore mingled with the harsh scrape of rusted metal dragging across sand. Dagoba Beach stretched out before them like a forgotten battlefield, its skyline pierced by jagged heaps of discarded appliances, tangled wires, and forgotten vehicles half buried in the dunes. The sky hung heavy with scattered clouds, sunlight breaking through in pale, fractured beams, while the salty breeze carried the sharp tang of ocean mixed with corroded iron and damp decay. Izuku paused to wipe sweat from his brow with his forearm, his freckled skin glistening under the faint light. What had once been an overwhelming mountain of junk now looked like a war zone in retreat, smaller piles neatly sorted, severed cables coiled like snakes, and broken appliances stacked with methodical precision. They'd even rigged a makeshift fence from old rope to mark their territory. Further down the shore, Takuto rolled his wrist experimentally, a small teal flame leaping from his palm before vanishing in a puff of smoke. He was fine-tuning his control, firing short bursts at a dented metal pipe. Each shot left a perfect circular scorch mark, and a satisfied grin spread across his face until a sudden gust shifted, blowing ashes straight into his eyes. "But it's starting to look decent," Izuku commented with a half-smile, not glancing up from the old oil drum he was lifting with his telekinesis. The drum hovered unsteadily, wobbling in the air as invisible forces strained against gravity. "I know," Takuto shot back, snuffing the flame with a snap of his fingers and a dramatic huff. "Give it 3 more months, and we'll actually see the ground." Optimist, Izuku sighed, adjusting the makeshift safety goggles he'd fashioned from tape and cracked lenses. "We're on day 3, and there are still 2 whole cars buried back there." "One at a time," Takuto countered, pointing a finger at him. A faint heat shimmer rippled from his hand, warming the air between them. "The point is, we've got rhythm now." Izuku nodded, his focus sharpening. He slowly raised a washing machine lid, a broken pair of pliers, and 3 fist-sized rocks from the sand. They floated in front of him, trembling slightly. Taking a deep breath, he concentrated harder. The rocks lifted, spun in a lazy circle, and suddenly plummeted, clanging against each other like rebellious bells. Takuto burst out laughing. "You were doing great until the rocks staged a mutiny." "I need to focus on one group at a time," Izuku grumbled, rubbing his temple as a dull ache began to build. "Holding everything balanced drains me too fast." "Relax, nerd. I'm still messing up sustained flames too." He turned to another scrap of metal and unleashed a steady jet only for the fire to flicker wildly, spread too thin, and fizzle out. Takuto groaned in frustration, but Izuku couldn't help but chuckle. "See," Takuto said, smirking through his annoyance. "The difference is, my mistakes look cool." "Only to you," Izuku teased. "One wrong gust and you'll torch your own hair." Takuto ran a hand through his messy green locks, feigning offense. "That will never happen." "Aha. Never." They locked eyes and dissolved into laughter, the kind of easy banter that had become their lifeline amid the grueling work. Somehow, it made the beach feel less like a punishment and more like home. After a while, Takuto wandered over to a pile and kicked a crumpled bottle. It rolled across the sand, stopping at Izuku's feet. "You know what's the worst part?" he started, slinging an arm over Izuku's shoulder. "Can't even complain about the smell. It's not real garbage, just metal, sand, and, I don't know, mildew. Better than the disinfectant apocalypse at home," Izuku replied with a sigh, the memory hitting him like a wave. "When Mom made us clean the whole place, I nearly passed out." "Ah, that time." Takuto's grin turned lopsided. "How could I forget?" Izuku let out a short laugh, and for a moment, the crashing waves seemed to fade. The memory flooded back, vivid and chaotic. Flashback. The first warning was the acrid smell of smoke. The second was a deafening pop from the kitchen, followed by a billowing white cloud and nervous, manic laughter. Inko bolted in, already praying under her breath. What greeted her was domestic Armageddon, the microwave coated in batter, the ceiling splattered with what looked like raw cake dough, and at the epicenter, Takuto clutching a melted spoon like a trophy. Izuku stood beside him, dusted head to toe in flour, looking like a ghostly baker. "What?" Inko took a deep breath. "Exactly happened here?" Takuto attempted a winning smile. "Surprise?" Izuku jumped in hastily. "It was supposed to be a cake, Mom. I calculated the timing perfectly, but, Taku, I just wanted to make it more powerful," his brother interrupted. "The microwave was too weak. You put it on grill mode. Seemed more efficient." Inko closed her eyes and pointed at the ceiling. "And that up there?" Izuku glanced up, mortified. "That's the result of rapid air expansion in the batter. Technically a normal reaction. Under controlled conditions." "Ah, perfect," Inko said, crossing her arms. "So technically, you redecorated the ceiling with carbohydrates." Takuto barely stifled a snort. Inko did not. "You know, you could have just asked me, right? We have an oven. And adult supervision. In this house. We wanted to surprise you." Takuto mumbled, genuine remorse in his voice. Izuku nodded. "It was for your day off." Inko's expression softened for a split second until she spotted the sink. "You used the blender without the lid?" Silence was answer enough. Inko pinched the bridge of her nose and delivered the verdict. "Fine. From now on, you're banned from anything that heats, mixes, or melts." Takuto opened his mouth to protest, but she raised a finger. "And before you complain, you're cleaning everything. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms, bathrooms, the whole house." "Everything," they chorused. "For a week." "What?" "And no arcade. None. Not even a 5-minute game." Izuku tried reasoning. "Mom, if we divide tasks proportionally to the mess level, we could." "Izuku." She cut him off, deadly serious. "I swear, if you say, proportionally one more time, you'll be scrubbing the ceiling too." He clamped his mouth shut. Takuto surveyed the disaster, sighing. "Well, at least we learned a lesson." "Which is?" Izuku asked wearily. "That the microwave is stronger than it looks." "Takuto." "Kidding," he insisted, grabbing a rag while fighting back laughter. Inko shook her head as she left, but a tiny smile tugged at her lips once she tried, and failed, to hide. "Back to the beach." Izuku chuckled softly, snapping back to the present. "At least this time, she didn't make us scrub any toilets." "Yeah, but we volunteered to clean an entire beach," Takuto countered, tossing another bottle into a trash bag. "Way better. Less smell. More rust. If I get tetanus from this crap, You're levitating me to the doctor every day until I'm cured. You won't get tetanus. Oh yeah? Who's guaranteeing that? They stared each other down for a beat then, without a word, dove back into work. The waves filled the silence, accompanied by the drag of metal and the soft crackle of flames. It was only day 3, but a routine was emerging and with it, a quiet satisfaction in the exhaustion. Takuto practiced flame control between hauls. Izuku lifted small parts while organizing piles. Amid jabs, jokes, and sweat, the twins pressed on. Side by side, reclaiming a strip of shoreline and unknowingly reshaping themselves. Days blurred into weeks. One morning, as the sun crested the horizon, Takuto dropped a water bottle beside his brother and stretched. "We're getting better," he said, rolling his shoulders. "But something's missing." Izuku nodded, eyeing the remaining debris. "Like what?" "Direction." Takuto kicked a crumpled iron sheet. It clanged hollowly. "We're hitting, lifting, building strength, but we're not learning to fight properly." Izuku scratched his chin. "You want fighting lessons? But you already know jujitsu. What more do you need?" "I need to move right, you know? If I mess up a strike, I could burn myself. And jujitsu's not offensive enough for what I want right now." Takuto jabbed a finger at him. "And you're coming too." "Me? You can't always rely on your quirk." "Yeah, maybe." Izuku trailed off, already lost in thought. "Improving reflexes would help me react to attacks, refine fine motor control for telekinesis, and if I..." Clang. A soda can beamed Izuku right in the temple. "Ow," he yelped, rubbing the spot. "That hurt." "Was supposed to," Takuto laughed, tossing another can up and catching it. "Snap out of it before it turns into a thesis, nerd." Izuku grumbled but ended up laughing too. The next day, they stood before a weathered wooden gate with a hand-painted sign. "Izuken Dojo." The air inside smelled of polished wood and fresh tatami mats. Sharp strikes and rhythmic thuds echoed through the hall, mingling with focused breaths. A middle-aged man with a trimmed beard and calm eyes observed from the center. "Looking for something specific?" he asked, voice steady. Takuto spoke first. "We want to learn how to fight." "Fight?" The man raised an eyebrow. "There are many ways to fight." Izuku added, "He wants something offensive. I want defensive." The master crossed his arms, sizing them up. "I see. Brothers, and the resemblance is uncanny." "Twins," they said in unison. "Thought so." A faint smile appeared. "You balance each other." "Good." He gestured inside. "Let's see what you're made of. I think I know exactly what you both need." In the weeks that followed, Takuto threw himself into aggressive and explosive styles that matched his fire. Izuku adapted to mastering redirects and flow, turning an opponent's force against them. The contrast was hilarious. Takuto came home with bruised forearms and a cocky grin. Izuku returned with sore wrists from endless joint locks, muttering about energy redirection. Beach cleanup fused with dojo training, and progress skyrocketed not just in stance, but in confidence, the way they carried themselves. One evening on the walk home, Izuku broke the silence. "The body's improving, but control still kiss." "Like what, my fire or?" Takuto asked, adjusting his bag. "Our quirks in general. I was thinking, what if we found a specialist? A quirk counselor?" Takuto raised an eyebrow. "That a real thing? And aren't you already our analyst?" "It is I researched," Izuku said excitedly. "Found one nearby, Hitomi Yudakeshi. And my notes only go so far. I'm no expert." He flipped open his ever-present notebook, pages crammed with diagrams. Entry number 06. Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, mental force. A weak form of telekinesis, allowing mind-based object manipulation. Activation radius centers on the user, initial range 2.5 meters. Update, prolonged use causes severe headaches and dizziness. Focused concentration allows feeling objects remotely. Entry number 07. Takuto Midoriya. Quirk, flaming body. Grants fire expulsion from the body. Flames teal-green, intensely hot. Overuse leads to overheating and exhaustion. Update: fire restricted to arms, but body-wide heat factor controllable. High resistance to own external fire. Recent evolution: can now project flames previously impossible. Requires intense focus. Ah, got it. Takuto huffed. But this Yutakeshi, what's she gonna do? Tell me my fire's hot. Izuku shot him a look. It's not that, Taku. Or some crap about inner energy? He air-quoted dramatically. Izuku sighed patiently. It's about limits, optimization, energy efficiency. Takuto fell quiet, wind tousling his hair. Fine, he relented. But if she mentions chakra, I'm out. Izuku grinned. Deal. I'll contact her tonight, we'll go esi. 2 days later, they stood before Hitomi Yutakeshi's modest office. It was cozy, not clinical light walls adorned with human anatomy charts and energy flow diagrams. On the desk, small metallic sensors wired to a monitor. The woman who greeted them was younger than expected, brown hair in a loose bun, sharp but kind eyes, lab coat over casual clothes. So, the Midoriya brothers, she said with a serene smile. Come in. Takuto entered first, arms crossed, skeptical. Izuku followed, eyes darting everywhere. From your message, you're self-training and want deeper quirk insight? Exactly, Izuku said quickly. Mine demands heavy mental focus, I need to measure limits. I make fire, Takuto added bluntly. Get hot, shoot it now. That's it. Hitomi arched a brow. That's it? Yeah. He leaned against the wall. It works. No manual needed. She chuckled softly. People who say that usually need it most. Izuku bit his lip to hide a smile. Hitomi gestured to a chair. You first, Takuto. Sensors on your forearms. This gonna hurt? He asked warily. Only if you overthink. Great. Then I'm safe. She activated the monitor, colorful lines danced across the screen. Ignite up to your elbows. Slowly. Takuto inhaled, teal-blue flames bloomed, flickering over his skin. Hitomi watched intently. Beautiful color, but intensity's erratic. Overloading the right arm. Dominant arm, he shrugged. Needs to be stronger. No. It'll tire first, she corrected calmly. You're forcing power before rhythm. I don't need rhythm. I need impact. Impact without control is an accident. She reset. Again. Less force, more consistency. Takuto sighed but complied. This time, flames formed denser, steadier. The graph smoothed. There, she said, smiling. Stable flow conserves energy. Master this and you'll sustain longer without losing punch. Eventually shape and range without waste. Takuto blinked. So, sculpt the fire? Exactly. You project now, next, direct it? Fire isn't just brute force, it's rhythm. He fell thoughtful. Izuku watched, eyes sparkling, mentally noting every word. Your turn, Izuku. Sensors on temples and hands. Lift that box. She pointed to a 10 kilograms metal crate. I think so. Eyes closed, air thickened, the crate wobbled, then rose steadily to 30 centimeters. Hitomi tracked the brainwave spikes. Solid stability. But cerebral pulse is spiking fast. You're micromanaging. Izuku frowned. The crate shook and crashed. He gasped, clutching his head. Always like this? Pretty much, he admitted sheepishly. Dividing focus drains everything at once. Because you're treating objects separately, she explained. Don't move items, balance forces. Visualize a web, effort distributes. Izuku's eyes widened. A web. She powered down with a nod. You both have immense potential. But if you ignore your bodies, your quirks will turn on you. Takuto crossed his arms. What if I wanted to roar? Then build lungs to handle the echo, she replied seamlessly. Izuku stifled a laugh. Outside, Takuto admitted, she knows her stuff. Told you, Izuku beamed. No, inner energy's nonsense. Still think she reads minds. The months rolled like tides, some gentle, some crashing, but always pushing forward. Dagoba Beach transformed. Junk piles shrank, the twins knew every nook. Rust, salt, and sea became their world. Early on, progress crawled. Takuto fumed at flame flickers. Izuku nursed migraines. But victories accumulated. Weekly visits to Hitomi tracked evolution. She measured, compared, refined. She teased Izuku's obsessive notes, scolded Takuto's recklessness, but always sent them out stronger. At the dojo, styles honed them. Takuto's Muay Thai karate fusion became lethal flames, sinking with strikes like extensions of his fists. Izuku's Aikido turned ethereal, combined with telekinesis. He redirected like the world bent to his will. Bad days hit hard. One afternoon, Takuto collapsed trying 10+ minutes of sustained flame. Another, Izuku blacked out lifting too much debris. They argued loudly. "You're pushing too hard, Aizu? And you think burning everything makes you stronger?" But they laughed it off, pride bruised, hands greasy. It could be said that the only real challenge for them was balancing everything alongside their studies, something Izuku handled with genuine enthusiasm, but Takuto tended to prioritize training instead. Izuku always tried to keep that from happening, constantly nudging his brother to stay on the straight and narrow. By month 10, the beach gleamed under a flawless sunset, waves mirroring the sky in unbroken hues of amber and crimson, no more jagged reflections off forgotten junk. It felt almost unreal, like they'd carved out their own piece of the world. That evening, with the air thick and humid, a salty breeze whispering promises of storms on the horizon, they decided on one final test. Brother against brother. Takuto dug his heels into the damp sand, stance low and predatory like a Muay Thai fighter ready to unleash hell. Teal flames ignited along his arms in a slow, controlled bloom, dense and steady, no longer the wild flickers of months ago. The heat shimmered, distorting the air around him like a mirage. Izuku stood opposite, eyes closed in deep focus, breathing measured. With a subtle flex of his mind, a dozen rusted metal lids ripped free from the sand, orbiting him in a tight, humming vortex, spinning faster, edges glinting dangerously in the dying light. Smaller debris joined, rocks, twisted rebar, even a shattered car door hovering at his back like improvised armor. The invisible web of his telekinesis thrummed, a silent storm ready to erupt. "Ready?" Takuto called, voice low and edged with excitement, flames crackling louder as he fed them just a hint more fuel. "Always," Izuku replied, eyes snapping open, emerald fire matching his brother's teal blaze. Takuto exploded forward first, sand kicking up in his wake. A blistering hook punch sliced through the air, fist enveloped in a roaring teal inferno that left a trailing comet of heat. The strike whistled past Izuku's cheek close enough to singe stray hairs, the scorching wave forcing him to pivot on instinct, Aikido flow merging seamlessly with his quirk. Izuku countered mid-dodge, mental grip tightening. Half the orbiting lids launched like shuriken, whistling telekinetic projectiles aimed at Takuto's torso with pinpoint precision honed from endless drills. Takuto's grin turned feral. "Aiming's improved, huh?" He dropped low, spinning on his heel in a karate sweep that stirred a whirlwind of sand. A sharp exhale and he unleashed a concentrated jet of flame from his palm, a lance of teal fury that intercepted the lids mid-flight. Metal screamed as it superheated, glowing red before melting into molten slugs that hissed and burrowed into the sand. Not missing a beat, Izuku moved both hands forward, yanking a massive wall of compacted sand upward like a tidal barrier, grains fusing under telekinetic pressure into a gritty shield that blocked Takuto's line of sight. Dust choked the air, turning the battlefield into a hazy arena. Takuto laughed, wild and exhilarated. "Cute trick." He charged straight through, whirling into a full-body spin. Flames erupted outward in a perfect arcs, a living ring of fire that expanded like a shockwave, vaporizing the sand wall in an explosive hiss of steam and glassified grains. The heat slammed into Izuku like a freight train, forcing him back a step, sweat evaporating off his skin instantly. But Izuku was ready. Drawing on Hitomi's lessons, he visualized not individual objects but the web of forces connecting them. His remaining debris surged into a defensive maelstrom, rebar whipping like chains, rocks pelting in unpredictable patterns, the car door slamming down as a battering ram propelled forward with crushing momentum. Takuto met it head-on. A brutal elbow strike shattered the incoming door into fragments, flames coiling around his limbs like serpents. He pressed the attack, a flurry of Muay Thai knees and elbows wreathed in sustained fire, each blow leaving trails of ionized air, forcing Izuku into a frantic dance of redirects and counters. Izuku flowed like water, Aikido redirects amplified by telekinesis, grabbing Takuto's fiery momentum mid-punch and flinging it aside, sending blasts of flame veering harmlessly into the sea where they extinguished in furious hisses. A telekinetic shove halted a knee strike inches from his ribs, rippling the air with raw force. The clash intensified, flame jets clashing against invisible barriers, metal shards deflecting off heat shields. Sand exploded in geysers, the beach scarred with scorch marks and craters. Impacts thundered like artillery, echoes rolling over the waves. Finally, a massive dual assault. Takuto roaring as he unleashed a full-power flame spiral, a teal tornado barreling forward. Izuku responded with every scrap of debris converging into a singular, crushing telekinetic hammer, slamming down like a meteor. The collision detonated. Shockwaves ripped across the shore, flinging both brothers backward in a blast of sand, steam, and embers. Silence crashed down, broken only by heaving breaths and the distant surf. Dust settled slowly. Takuto lay sprawled on his back, flames flickering out to mere embers, a massive grin splitting his face despite the bruises blooming on his arms. Izuku pushed himself up on shaking elbows, head throbbing but alive with triumph, debris clattering around him like fallen soldiers. They locked eyes and burst out laughing, raw and unrestrained, the sound echoing over their reclaimed battlefield. "How much can you lift now?" Takuto wheezed, wiping sweat and sand from his eyes. 17 objects at once. Max weight 73 kilos, Izuku panted, eyes shining brighter than the flames had. Stable range, 25 meters. And I felt the web this time, no strain spikes. A dangerous little nerd, Takuto teased, flexing a singed fist. Could levitate the whole couch for mom's cleaning frenzies now. Izuku snorted. And you? How long on those sustained flames? Nearly 25 minutes straight, Takuto boasted, pushing to his feet with a groan. Without torching extras or crashing. Before all this? I'd have flamed out in 5. But I own this fire. It's mine to shape. They collapsed side by side in the sand, staring at the darkening sky as stars began to prick through. 10 months, huh? Takuto murmured, voice softer now. Flew by, Izuku agreed. But every bruise, every headache. Worth it. Takuto tossed a handful of sand skyward, watching it scatter on the wind. Funny. I started this just chasing strength. To prove something. Now. He trailed off, but Izuku understood. Now we just want to keep going, Izuku finished, smiling. That's what makes us unstoppable. They lingered until the sun vanished, waves gently erasing their footprints and the scars of battle in what was once a wasteland. UA's entrance exam loomed next week. For the first time, no fear gripped them, only raw, burning anticipation. The entrance to UA High loomed larger in person than any photo Izuku had ever obsessively studied. The iconic yellow arches gleamed under the morning sun, drawing in a steady stream of aspiring heroes like the school itself was inhaling, pulling the future into its halls. Voices overlapped in a chaotic symphony of nerves and excitement. Oh God, did we study enough? Dude, I'm shaking. You brought your ID? The registration slip. The practical exam isn't deadly, right? Takuto let out a low whistle, scanning the crowd. Looks like we're not the only ones freaking out inside. Izuku adjusted his backpack straps, trying to steady his racing heart. Not freaking out. Just calculating probabilities. Takuto shot him that classic "sure you're not" look, eyebrow arched in amusement. They took a few steps forward but paused just before crossing the threshold. For a moment, the twins simply stood there, staring at the massive building and the sea of hopefuls pouring in. The weight of it all hung in the air, the culmination of dreams, sweat, and unspoken fears. 10 months. Izuku murmured, almost to himself. 10 months, Takuto echoed. In unison, they glanced down at their hands, the faint scars from endless training, the callous skin tougher than before, muscles subtly more defined. As they drew in a shared breath, the memory pulled them back. Flashback. Dagobah Beach was unrecognizable. The sea breathed freely, waves lapping at clean sand where junk once choked the shore. Izuku sat atop a stack of concrete blocks, sweat beading on his forehead as he focused. 17 small objects hovered before him. Crumpled bottles, plastic lids, rusted nuts, all trembling but suspended in midair by invisible threads of will. 16. 17. He muttered, voice straining. A dull throb built behind his eyes, the mental strain like a tightening vice. A few meters away, Takuto stood with fists clenched, breathing deeply. Flames coated his arms in a steady teal glow, controlled, unwavering, a far cry from the erratic bursts of months ago. He raised one hand, fingers splaying open. The precise jet shot forth sharp, directed, sustained. 1 minute and 10 seconds, Taku! Izuku called out, grinning through his discomfort. Takuto extinguished the flames with a huff, chest heaving. New record. He gazed out at the beach, at what had seemed impossible, now transformed into open space and visible waves. Hey Aizu, he called. We really did this, huh? Izuku gently lowered the objects, rubbing his aching temples as he stood. We did. Even if it wasn't the main goal. It happened anyway. They shared a quiet laugh, not forced, just the natural kind that bubbles up when you realize how far you've come without noticing. As they hauled the last massive hunk of rusted scrap, pushing together, grunting with effort, the feeling wasn't "we're done." It was, "this is just the start." Takuto raised his fist. Here we come. Izuku bumped it firmly. Back at UA's gates. The shared silence lasted only seconds, but it was laced with those memories, the good kind that fuel you forward. Izuku broke it first, voice low to not disrupt the flow of students. Funny. I thought I'd remember these 10 months as this huge, impossible to sum up thing. But now, it's just the small moments that stick. Takuto chuckled softly. Like you passing out after trying to lift that pile of metal shards? Izuku flushed. I didn't pass out. I just lost mental balance for a second. Aha. Takuto clapped his shoulder. And me nearly setting the dojo fence on fire. Twice. Izuku smiled, glancing down as they walked. You've improved so much since then. Your control's way sharper. Yudakeshi was impressed in that last session. Takuto huffed, but it was laced with hidden pride. And you hauling tires until your back nearly gave out. That was straight up dumb. It's resistance training. Izuku protested. And you helped tie the ropes. Takuto raised his hands in surrender. Okay. But I remember, when you lifted those 63 kilos. You cried. Izuku went red again. That was relief. And you cried too when you sustained flames for 30 seconds straight. Smoke in my eyes. Liar. They laughed together, easy, genuine, no pretense. Takuto adjusted his wristband as they passed under the gates. You know, what I remember most from those months is us screwing up together. Me too, Izuku agreed. But it was worth it. Every bit. Takuto lifted his chin. Demon right. No drama. No fuss. We made it here. Now let's show 'em what we've got. Izuku inhaled deeply, the words settling like fuel. Yeah. Let's. Katsuki appeared behind them like a storm cloud, striding with tense shoulders, his expression screaming superiority. He shoved past without a glance. Get out of my way, you copy-paste disasters. Takuto raised an eyebrow dryly. Always so charming. Izuku watched Katsuki stalk ahead, hands jammed in pockets, but something felt off. You notice? Since the sludge villain day, he's been different. That silence of his? Takuto crossed his arms. Yeah. He hasn't told me to shut up once that week. Izuku let out a soft chuckle, eyes thoughtful. He doesn't look at us the same. Before it was pure rage. Now it's like his head's somewhere else. Or he's trying to ignore what happened. Takuto added. Which, considering he almost died. Yeah, I'd be weird too. Izuku shrugged, a bit sheepish. Oh. We're all heading into the same exam. Maybe that's messing with him. Takuto smirked. Either way, let's prove we're not just defective duplicates. Izuku nodded, staring at Yue's entrance. Today, it really begins. The twins merged into the student flow toward the main doors. The energy was electric, excited chatter, hurried steps, nervous sighs. Suddenly, Takuto halted. Whoa! He glanced down. Suicidal shoelace. Izuku turned instinctively but kept walking. Again? You tie those like you hate your shoes. It's because they provoke me, Izuku, Takuto quipped, crouching to yank the laces tight. I can feel it in their stare. Izuku chuckled, shaking his head, and didn't notice his own foot catch awkwardly on the pavement. Hey, Izuku, watch the... Too late. Izuku stumbled forward, bracing for the faceplant. But it never came. Instead, his body floated weightless, suspended like a feather in midair. Ah! A girl's voice rang out behind him. Gotcha! Izuku's eyes widened as he hovered inches above the ground, frozen in place. The girl touched his shoulder gently, her fingertip glowing faintly. Okay, you can come down now. He descended slowly, feet touching solid earth, still stunned. Thank you. That was really cool. Your quirk's amazing. She beamed, her round face lighting up with bubbly energy. Thanks. I just didn't want you face-planting on day one. That'd be a bad omen, you know? Izuku laughed. True. Good thing you were nearby. Takuto caught up, dusting his knees. I step away for 5 seconds, and you almost become a statistic. Izuku huffed good-naturedly. Not helping. The girl giggled at their banter, clearly picking up on the twin vibe. Well, good luck on the exam. She stepped back, waving. See you inside. And with that, she darted into the crowd. The brothers paused for a beat. Takuto tilted his head. She was nice. What's her name again? Izuku blinked. That I don't know. I didn't ask. Takuto stared. Izuku stared back. Izuku. What? You forgot to introduce yourself. You didn't either. You were floating. How was I supposed to introduce myself? They sighed in unison. All right, Takuto said, rubbing his face. If we run into her again, try not to turn into a human drone, and we'll ask her name. Deal? Izuku gave a sheepish grin. Deal. The brothers flowed through the gates with the crowd. At the entrance, staff in UA vests directed the hopefuls. Written exam, one called. Check your room number on your badge and head left down the hall. Izuku and Takuto glanced at their badges and joined the group. The rooms were packed but orderly, desks spaced evenly, each with a sealed packet. Takuto exhaled as he sat. Here we go. Izuku straightened his pencil, confident. Relax. You studied with me these last months. You'll be fine. I did. Now, understanding everything I studied? That's another story. Takuto chuckled, more resigned than nervous. The buzzer sounded. The exam began. Izuku dove in like it was second nature, charts to analyze, questions on support laws, rescue ethics, basic physics applied to quirks. Nothing he hadn't devoured in prep. Takuto furrowed his brow at some. Determine optimal evacuation procedure in environments with secondary chemical risks. He muttered, propping his head. Why isn't there a punch and done button? But he pushed through, page by page, thinking, revising, persisting. When time was up, he stood with a sense of accomplishment. I definitely passed. Maybe not with academic honors, but passed. That's great. Izuku met him in the hall. How do you feel? Takuto stretched overhead. Solid. You? Pretty good, Izuku said excitedly. Now the fun part. A staffer directed them. Main auditorium. All candidates head there for practical instructions. Izuku and Takuto exchanged thrilled glances. Now the exciting stuff, Takuto grinned. Yeah. Wonder who's explaining it, Izuku mused, shifting his bag. Probably someone big from UA. Whoever it is, hope they're quick, Takuto laughed. I'm itching for the practical. They followed the throng down wide halls, descending a ramp to massive double doors. The auditorium opened with a whoosh of cool air and collective murmurs. Rows upon rows of seats packed. Izuku and Takuto settled in, and by fate's irony, Katsuki ended up right beside them, a row ahead. The setup: Izuku, Takuto, Katsuki, a triangle of silent tension. Lights dimmed abruptly. The massive screen behind the stage lit blue, UA's golden logo blazing. A voice boomed through speakers. To all tuned-in candidates, welcome to my show today. Now say, "Th." Present mic exploded onto the stage, leaning forward like he could hear the back row. Silence. The audience froze, caught off guard by the flare. It stretched awkwardly 1 second, 2, and Mike laughed heartily, tossing his head back. What a refined response. He clapped sarcastically. Now, I'll quickly explain the practical exam. You ready? Yeah. No one yelled. Stifled laughs rippled. The tension eased. Izuku jolted in his seat, eyes wide, the voice hero right there, and whispered excitedly to Takuto, "It's Present Mike. I listen to his show all the time. This is unbelievable, and all these teachers are pro-heroes." "Shut it." Katsuki snapped sharply, not even glancing back. Izuku deflated, cheeks burning. Mike powered on. "Per the rules, you'll have 10 minutes of simulated urban battles." "Very nice." The screen showed a map with 7 labeled zones, A through G. You can bring what you need. After this, head to your assigned battle center on your registration card. Eyes darted to badges. Izuku's, Candidate 2234, Izuku Midoriya, Center B. Beside him, Candidate 2233, Katsuki Bakugo, Center A. Takuto's, Candidate 2235, Takuto Midoriya, Center C. Takuto grinned, flashing his card to Izuku and Katsuki in a whisper. "Sweet, we're sequential. Too bad that doesn't mean same spot." "Yeah," Izuku murmured, a tad disappointed. "Even with close numbers, different centers." Katsuki tilted his head, irritation flickering. "Keep staring, and you're dead." "Then, I wanted to crush you too so bad." He muttered low, "Just for them," then looked away. Mike continued, gesturing to the screen. Silhouettes appeared. 1P, 2P, 3P. 3 villain types per center, Mike explained. Points based on difficulty. Use your quirks to immobilize faux villains and rack 'em up. Attacking other candidates? Totally banned. Heroes don't harm civilians or allies. Got it? Respectful silence held. The words sank in like anchors. A hand shot up. Spotlights hit a tall boy with blue hair, clutching instructions, standing determined. "May I ask a question?" he called. Mike grinned wickedly. "Shoot." The boy pointed at his sheet. "It lists 3 villain types, but my handout shows 4. If this is an error, Japan's premier school should be ashamed. We're here to become exemplary heroes, not deal with inconsistencies. And you with the curly hair," he jabbed toward Izuku, who'd been muttering softly, "Stop whispering. If you're here for fun, leave." Some laughed. Tension spiked. Izuku blinked, shocked at being called out, his face flushed. Mike paused dramatically, feigning horror. "Ah, sorry about that," Izuku mumbled sheepishly, but the chuckles showed the jab had lightened things. Mike returned to the mic. A new silhouette flashed. 0P, an obstacle symbol for distraction. "The 4th type's 0 points," Mike announced. "An obstacle that goes berserk in tight spaces. Not worth your time. Avoid if possible." The boy bowed quickly, thanked him, and sat, breathless. Nearby, 2 candidates whispered game comparisons, jokes bubbled, easing the air. Mike shifted tone, announcer flair full blast. "And finally, our school's motto. The inspiring words of our time." He slammed the podium. "A true hero overcomes life's hardships. Go beyond plus ultra." The screen erupted in fiery letters. Plus ultra. Some clapped, others cheered, adrenaline surged. Takuto turned to his brother, grinning wide. "All right, heading to my center. Good luck, bro." He offered his fist, a ritual of courage. Izuku bumped it solidly, the gesture loaded with meaning. "You too, man." Takuto rose and headed out toward Center C's meeting point. Izuku turned, trying politeness with their explosive neighbor. Hey, Kaken, good luck to you too. Katsuki barely shifted. Don't bother, Deku. Izuku wore a minimal defeated look, thinking, well, at least I tried. He smiled inwardly, duty done. At Center B's gates, Izuku and his group lined up checking gear, deep breaths, eyes on the concrete horizon ahead. His heart drummed like thunder, mind racing. This is it. Everything from the last months, every note, every dojo fall, every beach hour, it's all here. I'll put it to use and step closer to the hero I want to be. Cut to Center C's gates. Takuto and his batch chatted loosely, a guy chewing gum, another tightening wraps. Takuto glanced at his stomach, thinking, could have eaten more chicken this morning. My gut's rumbling. Mom'll make something special when I get back? Not now. Future's ahead. Time to show what I'm made of. Split screen, the brothers at separate gates, slapping their cheeks lightly in sync. Both thought, fierce and simultaneous. This is the moment. And with that, the practical exam was about to ignite. Snow fell in a gentle rhythm, that morning light enough not to disrupt the day, yet steady enough to blanket the neighborhood in a soft, pristine white. This wasn't the glittering heart of the city, with its twinkling lights and elaborate window displays, but a quiet residential area where modest homes sported simple chimneys and the occasional handmade wreath. Outside, children's footprints already dotted the sidewalks, and lopsided snowmen stood sentinel in yards, evidence of early morning play before school bells rang. Inside the Midoriya apartment, the kitchen's warmth warded off any chill seeping through the windows. The aroma of freshly made tamagoyaki mingled with the steam rising from fluffy rice, creating a comforting haze. Inko stirred the green tea with slow, deliberate motions, letting out a contented sigh, the kind that comes when everything aligns perfectly in an ordinary morning. She opened the cupboard above the sink, retrieving two familiar bento boxes. Izuku sported a small All Might sticker in one corner, a badge of his hero worship. Takuto's was a chaotic collage of random hero decals, some peeling at the edges, applied with the enthusiasm of a boy who couldn't decide on just one favorite. Inko traced a finger over one, chuckling softly to herself. They grow up so fast. Before the thought could linger, hurried footsteps echoed from the hallway. Izuku appeared first, his dark green hair still damp and wildly tousled from the shower. He rubbed one eye with his sleeve, looking adorably sleepy in his 9-year-old innocence. Morning, Mom, he said, leaning in for an automatic hug. Good morning, sweetie. Inko kissed his forehead. Sleep well. But it was cold getting out of the bath. That's why you need slippers, she teased gently. Takuto burst in right behind, entering the kitchen like he was storming a battlefield. His hair was even messier than Izuku's, with a beanie slung haphazardly over it. Mom, it's snowing harder, he announced as if she hadn't noticed. You can see it from the window. Good morning, Takuto, Inko replied, arching an eyebrow. Oh, morning. He raised his hands in surrender. Morning, morning. They sat down. Izuku clasped his hands in thanks before eating. Takuto dove straight into the rice without fanfare. Slow down, Izuku scolded his brother, frowning. You'll choke. Won't. Takuto mumbled through a mouthful. You will too, Izuku insisted, crossing his arms with childlike seriousness. Inko watched the exchange, her heart swelling with quiet joy. This morning chaos warmed her more than any tea ever could. After breakfast, she helped them bundle up in coats and scarves. She straightened Takuto's crooked beanie and fixed Izuku's collar, which he always managed to tuck in wrong. Don't run too much, she warned in her classic winter morning tone. The sidewalks get slippery. We know, Mom, Takuto said, though he was always the first to sprint. Be careful and look out for each other. They nodded instantly. In the hallway, she watched them enter the elevator, waving back as the doors closed. The quiet settled in, but it was a peaceful one, a home ready for the day ahead. Later, a door creaked open across the hall, and Mitsuki Bakugo yanked Inko inside before snow could track onto her rug. Come in, come in. It's freezing out there, Mitsuki exclaimed. Coffee? Katsuki's off to school, thank God, so I can finally hear myself think. Inko laughed, shrugging off her coat. Coffee sounds great. Thanks. Mitsuki's kitchen was as vibrant as she was, the kettle whistling, strong coffee scent filling the air. She juggled 2 mugs, chattering nonstop. So, she asked, handing Inko her cup. You've got that worried look. Spill. Inko glanced away. It's silly. Christmas gifts. Haven't bought anything yet. The statement was more fact than question. Inko sighed, unable to deny it. I wanted something special this year, you know? But work. She shook her head. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. And now it's too late. Mitsuki took a sip, then pointed her mug like a command. Still time. Hit them all. Grab what you can. They'll love it anyway. It's just. Inko clutched her cup. They're growing up. I don't know what to pick anymore. Mitsuki placed a hand on her shoulder. Listen, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just from you. And you always nail it. Inko breathed easier, the words lifting a burden. Thanks. Really? Go. Before I pick for you and get something explosive, Mitsuki winked. The city center was a world apart from their quiet neighborhood. Sidewalks bustled, shop windows twinkled with holiday lights, and carols piped from speakers. Inko wandered slowly, peering into each display with hopeful scrutiny and growing doubt. She entered a toy store. Nothing truly clicked. An electronics shop had prices that made her eyes widen. In a comic book store, colorful volumes lined shelves. She touched a few, picturing the boys engrossed. But none felt quite right. Hours slipped by unnoticed. Her hands held only a small bag with clothes and cheap comics. Her heart carried a nagging weight. At least they'll get something, she murmured, trying to convince herself. The sky darkened as she headed home. She kicked off her boots, hung her coat, and climbed a chair to stash the gifts high in the cupboard out of reach for any 9-year-old sleuths. Descending carefully, she straightened the chair. The quiet returned, but soon the boys would fill it with stories and laughter, maybe snow clinging to their sleeves. Inko sighed. It wasn't the world's perfect Christmas, but it was what she could give. The door swung open before Inko could check the clock again. A gust of cold air rushed in, followed by 2 energetic boys with rosy cheeks, exhaling misty breaths. Mom! Izuku called, kicking off his shoes haphazardly. We did shadow theater today. Takudo hung his coat with a quick flick, nearly missing the hook. I was a giant samurai and Izuku was. What again? A tree. Izuku set his backpack down gently, despite its load of books. But an important one. I held the whole set. Without me, no forest. Takudo grinned. The teacher said my shadow was the coolest. My sword was huge on the wall. Katsuki was jealous. Inko smiled, brushing snowflakes from their hair. I'm sure it was amazing. You're both freezing. Go shower before you turn into icicles. Yes. Izuku dashed off, peeling his sweater mid-stride. Mom, the water'll be hot today, right? I'll make sure, Inko promised. Takudo lingered, eyes bright. Can I use the cedar shampoo? The one you bought last week? Sure, Taku. She chuckled at his feigned nonchalance. He loved the scent. Just don't use half the bottle. I wouldn't, he mumbled, trailing after his brother. The apartment quieted, save for the distant shower hum and wind against the window. Inko savored. These simple moments, they anchored her world. When they returned, hair damp, in cozy pajamas, the fresh soap scent mingled with winter's chill. Takudo plopped down first, arms folded on the table. Mom, what's for dinner? You'll like it, she said, serving carefully. It's cold out. Thought something warm would hit the spot. She set down their favorites, a generous bowl of katsudon for Izuku, torikatsu with dark teriyaki sauce and extra spice for Takudo, and simple miso soup with egg and veggies for herself. Izuku's eyes sparkled like stars. Katsudon. Mom, katsudon. Takudo dove in, the spice hitting hard. He closed his eyes blissfully as faint embers flickered from his nostrils, quickly fading. He sighed, utterly content. This is what I love. Too spicy? Inko teased, knowing the answer. Never too spicy, Takuto declared proudly. I like it like this. Izuku pointed with his chopsticks. Mom, Taku looks like a dragon every time he eats spicy stuff. Takuto puffed up. Then I'm a cool dragon. You're a sneezy dragon, Izuku shot back. Takuto flushed. I only sneezed once. Twice, Izuku corrected, giggling. Inko shook her head, smiling as her heart warmed more than the tea. It was impossible not to find it all perfect. After dinner, they migrated to the living room. A silly show played on TV, but the twinkling tree lights gave the space a cozy glow. Izuku snuggled under a star-patterned blanket. Takuto sprawled on the rug, claiming it as the comfiest spot. Mom, Izuku called without looking up, can we see the plaza tree tomorrow? If it doesn't snow too hard, sure, Inko said, ruffling his hair. Takuto lifted his head. The tree's bigger than last year's. Katsuki said they're adding a giant new star. And since when do you believe everything Kaken says? Izuku teased. I don't. But I want to see anyway, Takuto replied, flopping back. Minutes later, Takuto dozed off, sliding slightly on the rug. Izuku toyed with the blanket's edge, lost in daydreams. Inko watched them, cherishing the scene like a living memory. Then she took a deep breath. It's time. Wait a minute, she said, standing. I need to use the bathroom. Izuku nodded. Takuto mumbled a vague, eyes shut. In the bedroom, Inko retrieved the simple gifts from the cupboard. Holding them tenderly, the clothes and cheap comics, she inhaled deeply. It wasn't much, but it came from love. Returning, the boys perked up at her hidden hands. Mom, Izuku asked. I wanted to give you something today. Her voice was soft. It's not fancy, but I thought of you when I bought it. She revealed them. Izuku took the comics reverently, like treasures. It's the ninja hero. The one Taku likes. Takuto ran his fingers over the new clothes. This is so cool. I know it's not much. Inko started, voice wavering. This year was busy and I... Takuto cut her off with a hug from behind, fierce and true. We love it. For real. Izuku embraced from the other side, tears welling. You always think of us. That's what makes it special. Inko pulled them close, emotions overflowing. You two are my greatest gift. Always have been. They stayed like that, bathed in the tree's soft glow, dinner scents lingering, TV murmuring faintly. Knock knock. A light, unexpected rap. Izuku lifted his head. Who's that? Takuto stirred, alert. Inko frowned. Not expecting anyone. Another knock, firmer. She took a breath, approached the door, and cracked it open. Her face froze in shock. Hisashi. There he stood, snow dusting his shoulders, dark coat open, a small suitcase beside him, clutching a bouquet like a lifeline. His eyes, tired but shining, met hers with the gentleness of long-carried longing. He smiled. Hi, honey. Everything blurred. Inko's hand flew to her mouth, as if to confirm reality. Her breath trembled. Then she surged forward, faster than he anticipated. Hisashi. The bouquet nearly slipped as she hugged him tightly, face buried in his warm chest, then kissed him with overwhelming emotion and love. Hisashi let out a soft, muffled laugh, the kind he reserved for when feelings overwhelmed him. The boys shot up from the couch. Mom? Izuku asked, confused. Whose? Then they heard the voice. Boys. Hisashi said, eyes glistening, still holding Inko. Takuto blinked. Izuku's mouth dropped. Their minds clicked. Dad! Takuto yelled, bolting forward. Dad! Izuku raced after. Hisashi opened his arms, but the impact nearly toppled him. He staggered, laughing, bracing against the wall. Whoa, easy everyone. Let me get inside before you bowl me over. Izuku pulled back, laughing through tears. Takuto clung a second longer before releasing, snapping a salute like a mini-soldier. Hisashi ruffled their hair, messing it further. You're both so big I almost didn't recognize you. Missed you guys so much. His voice cracked at the end. Inko steadied herself, taking the bouquet. Really came. Hisashi gazed at her tenderly. It's Christmas, Inko. You're my home. He stepped in, revealing a large bag. Takuto eyed it curiously. What's in there? He asked, squinting. Hisashi lifted it with a mischievous grin. This? Just a few things I wanted to bring. He sat on the rug, beckoning them. Izuku, he unwrapped a bubble-wrapped box. Saw this in a shop window and thought, that's my boy. Hisashi peeled the plastic. Izuku gasped. A limited edition young All Might action figure, perfect details, glowing base, classic early career pose. Rare. Incredibly rare. The kind Izuku only dreamed of from online photos. Dad. His voice was thin, trembling. This is real. Yeah, Izuku. Hisashi smiled, handing it over. Don't spend much out there. Figured. Why not? Izuku clutched it like fragile glass, then hugged it tight, nearly squishing Mini All Might. I love it, he cried, voice thick. Glad, son. Hisashi hugged him back. Takuto hovered over the bag. Me? Me. Hisashi pulled a rectangular package. Takuto Midoriya. For my personal fighter. Takuto tore the paper ferociously and choked. A brand new handheld game console, loaded with the action game he'd begged for. For 2 full seconds, Takuto stared, breathless. Dude. This is so cool. He tackled his dad like a comet. Hisashi oofed loudly but laughed, hugging back despite the bruises. Inko watched, hand over mouth, a tearful laugh escaping. Hisashi. How did you afford all this? Saved up. He looked at the boys, clutching gifts like talismans. I wanted to give them this. That's all. Her forehead against his. You being here was enough. Hisashi kissed her forehead slowly. But now I'm here. And they got something cool. What's the harm? He stood. The boys orbited him like satellites. Now, Hisashi snapped his fingers, I hear this house has Japan's best cook. Would she whip up something for her husband who crossed half the world missing her and starving? Inko put hands on hips, feigning sternness. Maybe. If you set the table. Takuto brandished his console like a sword. I'll help. Izuku raised his figure. Me too. Hisashi looked like the happiest man alive. As the four headed to the kitchen, laughter, hurried steps, travel tales, and food requests filling the air, the living room lingered in twinkling light. It was simple, beautiful, a night etched into memory forever. Hisashi was home. And that made all the difference. For the Midoriya family, that Christmas was whole for the first time in ages. It truly was the perfect gift. The simulated urban battle centers were sprawling artificial metropolises, scaled-down replicas of bustling neighborhoods, crammed with towering buildings, narrow alleys, shadowy backstreets, and gleaming metallic structures that caught the morning sun like jagged mirrors. From an aerial view, the camera glided smoothly over rooftops, zooming in on Battle Center B, where Izuku Midoriya stood among the throng of candidates. The massive metal gates loomed just beyond him. In the packed crowd, whispers of awe and disbelief rippled through the air. Whoa! It's like a whole city. How does the school even afford this? This is insane. Izuku kept a slight distance, not out of shyness, but to focus. He took deep breaths, stretching his arms and shoulders, rolling his neck to loosen the tension. The grind of the past 10 months, every dawn on the beach, hauling iron and pushing limits, pulsed beneath his skin like a second heartbeat. His muscles felt primed, ready to channel that invisible force he'd honed into something precise and powerful. The other competitors looked so confident. Some even brought gear. This is gonna be intense. His gaze wandered the crowd curiously. You drew the truly unique, a towering candidate nearly 2.5 meters tall with 6 thick, elongated arms sprouting from his back and chest, flexing like living tentacles. Another had red and white hair spiked into an aggressive cone, defying gravity as if physics were optional. And then he spotted her. The girl from the entrance. The one who'd saved him from face-planting earlier that morning. It's her. We're in the same center. Maybe. I should go introduce myself properly. He took a half step forward, but a firm hand landed on his shoulder. Izuku froze. He turned slowly, meeting a familiar face, the serious blue-haired boy from the auditorium, glasses perched perfectly on his nose. Him too. The boy followed Izuku's gaze to the girl, analyzing her with a clinical eye. That young lady appears to be concentrating, he said, adjusting his glasses with military precision. What are you doing? Are you here merely to disrupt others? His tone wasn't hostile, just straightforward, practical, objective, like a well-oiled machine. Izuku raised both hands placatingly, responding calmly. Oh no, it's not that. She helped me out earlier today. I thanked her, but... He let out an awkward chuckle. I forgot to ask her name. But you're right, I should let her focus. Nearby candidates overheard, their expressions shifting from stifled amusement to subtle relief. Many had already written Izuku off as non-threatening, and honestly, he didn't mind. Ah, by the way, Izuku extended a hand, I'm Izuku Midoriya. And sorry about muttering in the auditorium. It's kind of a habit. The other blinked, momentarily surprised, then shook it with impeccable form. I apologize for assuming the worst. I'm Tenya Ida. I hope we both perform well in the exam. Ida? That name sounds familiar. But from where? Meanwhile, Battle Center C. Takuto Midoriya cracked his neck with a satisfying pop, the sun beating down on the artificial concrete like a spotlight. It reflected off metallic fixtures, turning the arena into a shimmering heat haze as if everything was on the verge of melting under the pressure. He drew a deep breath, savoring the adrenaline spike in his chest, and loving every second of it. He finished his warm-up with a rapid series of shadow punches, bouncing on his toes in fluid, confident motions. His body responded like a finely tuned engine. At the end, he cracked his knuckles, then his elbows, and as he clapped his fists together, a faint, brief ember sparked between them, his quirk greeting the moment like an eager ally. He didn't notice someone watching his little display with keen interest. Some interesting folks here, he thought, scanning the field. A massive competitor covered in dark fur, sharp fangs protruding from his maw, growled lowly while stretching. Another had drill-like elbows, spinning them experimentally with a mechanical whir. Wonder if I... The thought vanished as speakers blared to life. Let's get this started. Present Mike didn't even try for calm. The candidates froze. What? Someone blurted, disoriented. There are no countdowns in real life. Mike bellowed. Run, run. Your fate's already in motion. For a heartbeat, absolute silence. Then, pandemonium. Gates groaned open across centers. Crowds surged like stampeding herds, boots thundering, shouts and shoves blending with the metallic screech. Izuku and Takuto, each in their zone, thought the same thing, with identical intensity. I'm gonna make it. Izuku's footsteps echoed through the narrow streets of the battle center, a frantic mix of labored breaths, distant twisted metal screeches, and occasional booming explosions that rattled the faux buildings. The air carried a pungent scent of scorched oil and heated iron, an aroma that, strangely, sharpened his focus, grounding him in the chaos like a battlefield perfume. He observed everything with analytical eyes, his mind whirring like an overclocked engine. Splitting from the pack was the smart move. Less competition for robots means more points for me. And if they're tougher than they look, it's better not to rely on anyone else. He darted between structures, weaving through alleys so realistic they felt like a snapshot of an old city district, cracked pavement underfoot, graffiti-splattered walls closing in, shadows pooling in corners where threats could lurk. Then he froze mid-stride. The path ahead widened into a small plaza, and a robot emerged from the corner with ominous slowness. Its single wheel hummed threateningly, the red light on its head locking onto him like a predator's gaze. Izuku swallowed hard, but his eyes lit up with determination. Perfect. A one-pointer. He analyzed it clinically. Single wheel base, low center of gravity for stability. Arms reinforced with metal plating. Those plates. I bet I can rip them off. The robot accelerated, treads grinding against concrete as it charged. Izuku raised his hand, a faint green aura shimmering around him. The metal plate tore free with a sharp clang, flying toward him under telekinetic pull. "Oh, this thing's tough," he murmured, feeling the weight strain his mind like an invisible anchor. "It'll make a perfect weapon." The robot barreled forward, arms extending to crush. Izuku broke into a run too, adrenaline surging. The plate spun like a deadly discus, hurtling back clang. Clang, clang. Each impact reverberating off the surrounding buildings like thunderclaps in a canyon. With a wrist flick, Izuku recalled it, the plate hovering obediently like a boomerang on an unseen string. He took a steadying breath. "It's over." The plate launched like a spear, embedding deep into the robot's chest core. Blue sparks erupted in a dazzling shower. The machine toppled sideways, powering down with a final whine. Izuku grinned, cheeks flushing with exhilaration. "I did it. 1 point. And that felt amazing." He stepped back, the thrill washing over him like a wave. For the first time, he was fighting like a true hero aspirant, strategic, resourceful, unbreakable. The ground trembled with every explosion. But in Center C, the epicenter had a name. Takuto Midoriya. He was already tangling with two two-pointers simultaneously. The machines advanced in eerie coordination, scuttling like mechanical arachnids, pincers snapping with hydraulic hisses, but Takuto was faster, a blur of motion and heat. He dodged sideways, leaving trails of shimmering warmth in the air. Flames licked his fists in compact, intensely focused bursts, vibrating like a furnace on the brink of eruption. "Come on," he shouted, lunging forward. One robot stabbed with its metal stinger. Takuto grabbed it mid-move, his flames searing the alloy until it glowed red-hot. The bot recoiled, but Takuto was already on it. Explosion. Metallic screech. Robot down. The second tried to flee, pincers clacking in retreat. Not a chance. Takuto aimed his palm. A narrow, dense jet of teal fire lanced out, melting its legs in a molten spray. He sprinted, leaped, twisted midair, and delivered a vertical hammer fist, flames cascading down like a meteor strike straight into its core. The machine collapsed in a thunderous heap. Takuto smirked that pure, satisfied grin of victory. 4 points. Nice. He shook his hands, feeling his internal temperature climb, a delicious, electric buzz in his chest. 10 minutes, huh? My limit's way higher than that. Time to push a bit. Maybe crank up to full heat. He rolled his neck. Then, with a gleam in his eye, let's heat this party up. His flames intensified, brighter, hotter, sharper. He bolted off, leaving scorched footprints in the concrete, a human rocket blazing through the streets. Back in Center B, Izuku's expression hardened with resolve. He positioned himself in a wide avenue, standing alone against 4 robots converging like a mechanized assault squad. The noise was deafening, whirring engines, hissing compressed air, clanking hydraulics, and blaring alarms that echoed off the faux skyscrapers, creating a cacophony that drowned out everything but his pounding heart. The robots moved in unison, a small attack unit, 2 one-pointers rolling on treads like scouts, a 2-pointer scuttling with pincer arms snapping menacingly, and a hulking 3-pointer lumbering forward with earth-shaking steps, its frame reinforced like a tank. Izuku drew a deep breath, closing his eyes for a split second to center himself. He felt the weight of scattered metal debris hovering around him, twisted rebar, dented panels, loose bolts, each piece an extension of his will, buzzing with latent energy. Then his eyes snapped open, fierce and unyielding. "All right, let's dance." The robots charged as one, the ground vibrating under their advance. Izuku's hands moved in swift, precise gestures like conducting a symphony of destruction. Metal plates tore free from nearby walls, hurtling toward the lead one-pointer and shredding its wheel with a grinding screech. A rusted bar levitated, spearing the second one-pointer's joints, locking it in place. He dodged a heavy swing from the 3-pointer by mere inches, his hair whipping up in the rush of displaced air, the near miss sending a jolt of adrenaline through him. "Oh, close," Izuku muttered with a nervous grin, sweat beading on his brow. He leaped back, raising both hands. From the ground, A manhole cover he'd spotted earlier ripped free, soaring upward like a summoned shield. With a mental shove, he slammed it into the three-pointer's chest right at the spot he deduced was its power matrix, based on the faint glow and structural weak points. A brilliant blue flash erupted. The robot staggered, systems overloading, before collapsing in a heap of sparking wreckage. Izuku braced on his knees, drawing ragged breaths as the mental strain hit like a wave, his temples throbbing, vision blurring at the edges. But triumph surged through him. With that, around 36 points, maybe? Not bad. He pushed onward, mind already dissecting the encounter. We don't know the total robots. Their distribution. The passing score. UA's testing not just power, but strategy and endurance. Then boom. Present Mick's voice thundered over the speakers. 6 minutes left, listeners. Izuku straightened, a determined smile breaking through. That's it then. Time to give everything. What was that phrase? Plus ultra. He sprinted forward, resolve stealing his steps. Back in Center C, Takuto was at full throttle when a scream pierced the air. Ack! He whipped his head around, spotting a student backed against a wall, a massive three-pointer looming over her, arm raised to crush. Without a thought, Takuto skidded across the ground, leaving scorched trails. He slid between her and the machine like a fiery barrier. Hey! The robot swung down. Takuto blasted a compact fireball at its joint, the explosion warping the metal and throwing it off balance. He rose, advancing relentlessly. Punches rained 1, 2, 3, each amplified by bursts of teal flame, building heat until the fourth detonated like a grenade, rupturing the core. The robot toppled backward with a resounding crash. The girl coughed, wide-eyed. She had purple hair, large eyes, and earphone-like jacks dangling from her lobes. Thanks a ton, fireplace guy. Takuto flashed a crooked grin. That's a new one, haven't heard that before. Good luck with the rest. He dashed off. Then, over the speakers, 6 minutes left, listeners. Takuto nearly laughed. Man, this is way too fun. Got about 40 points already. He cracked his knuckles, a small flame dancing between them. And I'm not stopping here. Let's go. He bolted, trailing waves of heat through shattered buildings, dodging smoke, debris, and flickering embers on the asphalt. Distant explosions vibrated the air. He veered sharply into a narrow corner and collided straight into someone. They tumbled in a heap with a dull thud. Oh, watch where you're going, the girl grumbled, clutching her arm. Sorry. Takuto replied quickly, scrambling up and offering a hand. You hurt. She took it, rising with a slight wince. But not from you. Chill. Takuto eyed her, long reddish hair tied in a side ponytail, determined eyes, an alert expression despite the jolt. About his height, maybe an inch taller, which he noted and dismissed instantly. The girl studied him back. Wait, I remember you. Me. Yeah. At the gates. Saw you concentrating, those quick punches caught my eye. Takuto grinned lopsidedly, playing it cool amid the rush. Oh, that? Just warming up. She stared blankly. I don't get it. He scratched his neck. Fire quirk. Ah, gotcha. She nodded, pieces clicking. By the way, I'm Itsuka Kendo. Nice to meet ya. She extended a hand. Takuto shook it firmly. Takuto Midoriya. But why'd my punches stand out? Kendo smirked. I'm a fighter too. My quirk lets me enlarge my hands. Takuto arched a brow. That's it? She frowned. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? He crossed his arms. Sounds like a poorly written script for an anime fanfic. Kendo rolled her eyes. Anyway, wanna team up? We could help each other out. Takuto grinned mockingly. Sorry, Red, but I don't work with amateurs. She leaned in, confident. I could take you down in a second if I wanted. Takuto brushed past her. Oh yeah? I'd pay to see that. Fine, let's team up. She shook her head with a faint smile. Try to keep up, hothead. And Takuto grinned. Ah, you little... Emerging from a narrow alley, Izuku's hands clenched tightly, his body humming with constant vigilance. The moment he stepped into the main thoroughfare, he was met with a veritable war zone. Destroyed robots littered the ground like fallen soldiers, twisted metal husks smoking from ruptured circuits, sparks dancing erratically across exposed wiring. Smoke rose in gray pillars, coiling toward the sky like serpents, while the acrid stench of burnt electronics hung heavy, mingling with the metallic tang of overheated steel. Candidates dashed about in frenzy, some shouting in triumph, others dodging debris, a few nursing minor wounds amid the chaos. The pavement was scarred with craters and scorch marks, testament to the brutal clashes that had unfolded. Izuku took 2 cautious steps forward, breath catching in his throat. What happened here? He glanced right and immediately recognized her, the kind girl from earlier. She extended her hands toward 2 downed robots, her fingers glowing faintly with ethereal energy. The air around her shimmered, vibrating with power. The machines lifted slowly, defying gravity as they rose several meters into the air. She clasped her hands together, brows furrowed in concentration. Release! The robots plummeted like meteors, slamming into 2 emerging foes below. The impact echoed through the street like thunder, debris flying in a gritty spray. She exhaled sharply, clearly drained but wearing a satisfied smile. With those 28 points, she dashed off, vanishing into the fray. Izuku stood frozen for a beat, admiration flickering in his eyes. 28? She's doing amazing. His gaze narrowed thoughtfully. But will that be enough? Before he could finish the thought, a sharp boom cut the air. From the opposite side, Ida burst forth like a blue missile, precise trajectory, dodging wreckage with effortless grace. He delivered a devastating kick to one robot's torso, the impact crumpling its frame inward like tinfoil. Without breaking stride, he pivoted and felled another with a clean, calculated strike. 45 points, Ida declared flatly, no pride, just disciplined fact. Izuku's eyes widened. 45. He's incredible. His quirk. Realization dawned. I think I know who he is now. Izuku spun on his heels. Around him, smaller explosions signaled other candidates racking up scores. I won't get anything here. He clenched his fist, feeling time slip away like sand through fingers. Better move. Time's running out. He sprinted off, desperation fueling his legs as he hunted for his next opportunity before it was too late. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit observation room far from the metallic clamor of explosions and pounding footsteps, a semicircle of glowing screens pierced the darkness. Each monitor captured a different slice of the battlefield, robots detonating in sparks, students sprinting through debris, dust clouds billowing like storm fronts. The blue light outlined shadowy figures, silent observers, evaluators scrutinizing every move. At the center sat a diminutive man in an ill-fitting swivel chair, his rounded ears too large for a human, snout too short for a cat, eyes too keen for anything ordinary, a bizarre blend of rat, dog and bear, exuding calm professionalism. His voice resonated softly in the room. In this practical exam, candidates weren't informed of the villain's numbers scattered across the centers. They have limited time, and areas too vast to explore safely. Thus, they must learn to draw the enemy out. Having the insight to grasp the situation before others. One screen shifted automatically, showing the multi-armed boy perched atop a building, surveying the vista before striking. Knowing when to form teams if needed and coordinate with partners. Another displayed taekwondo and kendo back-to-back, dismantling 2 robots in synchronized fury. Mobility to adapt to varying scenarios. The feed cut to Ida, a blue streak barreling straight ahead, toppling 2 foes in one fluid motion. The discernment to stay calm amid chaos. Yet another, Izuku facing 2 two-pointers, projecting a confident smile despite the beyond sheer combat prowess. One more switch, Bakugo, chest heaving, palms smoking faintly. Around him, wreckage, dozens of mangled robots, barely any intact. Finally, the principal lowered his gaze to a tablet and concluded, these are essential skills for maintaining peace on the streets. All translated into points here. To his left, an evaluator scanned more screens, voice steady but attentive. This year's group seems promising. For a moment, the room fell silent until a deep, unmistakable voice emerged from behind, laced with unusual gravity. We can't know for sure yet. The screens reflected only the tall, gaunt silhouette of the hero in his deflated form. The real test begins now. His bony hand extended to a panel, hovering over a red button, and the button depressed. Suddenly, across all battle centers, a series of muffled booms reverberated like chained thunder. Buildings shuddered and cracked, dust clouds erupting skyward as the ground quaked beneath candidates' feet. Then, it emerged, the zero-pointer, gargantuan, colossal, rivaling a 20-story skyscraper in height. Izuku's eyes bulged, throat tightening. The sight was absurd, like a cruel joke manifested in steel and circuits. Present mix words echoed in his mind, an obstacle that goes berserk in tight spaces. Recommend avoiding it at all costs. Izuku thought, dazed, isn't this a bit much? In Center C, Kendo supported a boy with a broken leg, hauling him from danger while Takuto torched the smaller robot responsible. Abruptly, the ground trembled harder. They looked up and there loomed the zero-pointer, rounding the corner like a mythical behemoth. Kendo's eyes widened in shock. That's the zero-pointer? Takuto furrowed his brows, wiping sweat from his forehead. Mike wasn't kidding about it being just an obstacle. But what an obstacle! Come on, she urged, slinging the injured boy's arm over her shoulder. It's heading right this way. Around them, other competitors reached the same panic-stricken conclusion, fleeing in the opposite direction, some stumbling over each other in the mad scramble. The zero-pointer stationed at Center B slammed its massive fist into the ground. Concrete shattered instantly, spiderweb cracks racing across the street as a violent shockwave of dust and wind surged outward, sweeping everything in its path. The air grew heavy, oppressive. What had once been a test was rapidly turning into something far more dangerous, bordering on outright despair. From the loudspeakers above, Present Mix's voice exploded across the battlefield, raw and frantic even through the distortion. Less than 2 minutes left. Izuku Midoriya, who until that moment had been completely frozen, staring helplessly at the towering robot, jolted back into motion. His legs began moving almost on instinct, his body reacting before his mind could fully catch up. Damn it, I have to run. Maybe I can still get at least one more point, he thought, panic tightening his chest. A voice. So familiar. And trembling with pain. Oh, that hurts. Izuku stopped dead in his tracks. His breath caught. His heart skipped. Turned. There she was, the kind girl from earlier, trapped beneath chunks of broken concrete, her hands clawing uselessly at the rubble, pinning her legs in place. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't free herself. And worse, the zero-pointer was moving straight toward her. Heavy footsteps shook the ground. Suddenly, someone rushed past Izuku so fast he was nearly knocked over. Midoriya! Ida shouted sharply as he ran. What are you doing standing still? Move now. Ida, look. Izuku pointed, his face pale. She's trapped. We have to help her. Without waiting for a response, Izuku bolted toward the girl, even as his mind screamed that he was too slow. Ida followed his gaze, took in the entire situation in less than a second and frowned deeply. At this speed, he won't make it. And so he ran after him. Izuku realized it too. His chest tightened painfully. I'm too slow. I won't reach her in time. I can't let her get hurt. That's not what a hero does. I have to surpass myself. Right now. And then. Phewish. A sudden burst of speed hurled him forward. Izuku nearly tripped over his own feet as the world blurred around him. What am I doing? How did I? He crashed to his knees, his hands scraping painfully against the asphalt. His body wasn't prepared for that kind of acceleration. That hurt? Okay, think about that later. Right now, I need to do it again. He in a deep breath, trying desperately to recreate that strange sensation. That pressure. That spark. Phewish. The explosion of movement happened again. Running beside him, Ida widened his eyes, momentarily stunned. That speed, since when can Midoriya run like that? He muttered, adjusting his stride. It's still not close to mine, but even so. Together, they reached the girl. Present Mix's voice roared again overhead. 1 minute left. Izuku dropped to his knees beside her, breathing hard. Hey, are you okay? He asked, his voice shaking with urgency. She clenched her teeth, fighting through the pain. I think my legs are stuck. I think I broke something. Ida assessed the situation instantly. Midoriya, do you have a plan? Izuku closed his eyes for a brief second, forcing himself to breathe. I do. I'll try to lift this rock. When I do, you grab her and run. As fast as you can. He extended his hand, focused every ounce of concentration he had. And the slab of concrete rose a few inches off the ground, trembling violently in midair. Ida didn't hesitate. He scooped the girl into his arms and took off. Izuku stayed behind for a split second, forcing his body to move again. Please, work again? 2 seconds later. Phewish. He shot forward, running alongside Ida as they fled down the street, the zero-pointer looming behind them. Exhaustion clawed at their bodies, muscles screaming in protest. When suddenly, Present Mike declared, "That's IT time's up." The zero-pointer froze mid-step. So did everything else. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then a collective sigh of relief. Ida slowed down and carefully set the girl on the ground. There, he said, straightening his posture. I hope I didn't injure you further during our escape. She laughed softly, utterly drained. Don't worry about that. Izuku approached nervously, still catching his breath. I forgot to ask your name earlier. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you. Ida adjusted his glasses. I am Tenya Ida. Allow me to say you're displaying remarkable endurance, remaining conscious after all that. The girl smiled despite the sweat and lingering pain. I'm Achiko Uraraka, thank you. Both of you. Really? A calm female voice spoke from behind them. Well, excellent work all of you. They turned. A short elderly woman wearing a medical coat and round glasses walked toward another injured candidate, handing them a small bag of candy. A blonde boy nearby murmured, That mademoiselle, she's the backbone of you. Recovery girl lifted her gaze. Is anyone injured? Izuku shot both arms into the air like he was flagging down a taxi. Over here. We've got someone hurt. The elderly heroine approached, gently kissed Uraraka's forehead. And everyone nearby gasped as her legs began glowing green. The blonde boy commented quietly, the official nurse of UA, the youthful hero, recovery girl. Her quirk hyperactivates healing abilities. That's why this exam can be so brutal. Uraraka inhaled deeply, fully healed but noticeably exhausted. After that, recovery girl healed Izuku as well before moving on to other injured students. Still buzzing from seeing such a famous hero up close, Izuku said excitedly. I guess that's it. I hope I passed. Ida clasped his hands behind his back. Relax, Midoriya. I believe you performed admirably. Uraraka looked at them shyly. Do you think my points will be enough? I guess we'll have to wait. Do you want to exchange numbers? So we can talk later. Ida straightened his glasses. I do not currently have my phone with me. Why, me neither, Izuku admitted. I know, she laughed. But when we reach the school exit, we can do it then. Back at Center C, Takuto and Kendo walked side by side. I'll admit it, Takuto said with a half smile, you're not bad in a fight. Kendo raised an eyebrow, clearly pleased. Told you. Takuto exhaled slowly. I hope Aizu did well. Who's Aizu? My brother. Oh, that's nice having family taking the exam with you. She crossed her arms. Hey, when we get our stuff, how about we exchange numbers? Takuto smirked. Only on one condition. Which is? Fight me someday. No quirks. Just a clean match. Loser buys the winner a snack. He extended his hand. She grinned challengingly and shook it without hesitation. You are so on. As Takuto and Kendo strolled toward the exit, still chatting about the fight, his twin brother, and that impending Tadama challenge, a pair of light, hurried footsteps echoed behind them. Takuto turned first, his instincts sharpening from the day's adrenaline. The purple-haired girl from earlier, the one he'd saved from the three-pointer robot hours ago, approached with hands tucked in her pockets, one earphone jack swaying gently as she drew a steadying breath, like someone mustering quiet courage. "Hey, you too," she called, her tone casual but firm, laced with a subtle edge of determination. Takuto arched an eyebrow, intrigued. Kendo offered a curious smile, tilting her head slightly. The girl stopped beside them, avoiding eye contact for a beat before locking gazes with Takuto. Her expression was serious, but a faint blush colored her cheeks, the telltale sign of her trying to be genuine without seeming vulnerable, a shield she'd honed over years of navigating a world that often mistook quiet strength for weakness. "Before you vanish into the crowd." She cleared her throat. "Thanks. For real. If you hadn't shown up, I'd probably be robot paste right now." Takuto flashed a lopsided grin, rubbing the back of his neck to play off the warmth creeping into his chest. "Relax, I wasn't gonna let earphone girl get squashed on my watch." She narrowed her eyes, a spark of amusement flickering beneath the surface. "Ichiro. Kyokujiro." But despite the teasing tone, her voice softened. Seriously, thank you." Kendo jumped in smoothly, her warm energy bridging the moment. "I'm Itsuka Kendo. Nice to meet you." Jiro nodded, her posture still a bit guarded, like she was testing the waters before diving in. She glanced between them, her hand slipping into her pocket as if fishing for something, perhaps words, perhaps resolve. "Anyway." She took a breath, almost rolling her eyes at herself, as if the vulnerability felt embarrassing. "I heard you two swapping numbers. Figured maybe I could grab yours too. You know, for training. Or talking about the exam. Whatever." Her dialvoix made it clear, this was as close to "I wanna be friends" as she'd allow herself to get, a subtle invitation wrapped in layers of cool detachment. Kendo's smile widened, genuine and welcoming. "Sure. I'd love that." Takuto crossed his arms, smirking. "If you're asking, it must mean something big. All right. Once I grab my phone, I'll pass it along." Jiro exhaled, half relief, half feigned indifference. "See you at the exit, then." She walked ahead a bit, her pace measured, but it was obvious she was lingering, subtly waiting for them to catch up without making it obvious. Takuto, Kendo, and Jiro continued together toward the exit of the faux city. Scattered remnants of destroyed robots gleamed under the harsh sun, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement, while the lingering smell of heated metal hung in the air like a badge of battle. Takuto walked with a steady stride, but his breaths came deeper, his body still radiating residual warmth that made the cool breeze feel like a soothing balm against his flushed skin. Jiro glanced at him sideways, her earphone jacks twitching slightly as if picking up on the subtle heat waves. "You good? You look like you just ran a marathon." "I'm fine," Takuto replied, wiping his forehead with his forearm. 2 beads of sweat trailed down, but it was nothing alarming. "Just happens after using my quirk for a while." Kendo nodded, her ponytail swaying with the motion. "Still, you held it together great. Overheating like that at the right moment's a huge edge." "Yeah," he chuckled softly, flexing his fingers to shake off the lingering tingle. "Just can't push it every day, or I'd turn into barbecue." "That'd be ironic, given your power," Jiro quipped, a dry humor edging her words. "Sad and ironic," he agreed, the shared laugh easing any remaining tension. The shuttle bus ferried them back to UA's main building. Takuto claimed a window seat, leaning his arm on the rest, letting the cooler air brush against his skin. It drew a contented sigh from him, the contrast a welcome reprieve after the inferno he'd unleashed. During the ride, Jiro leaned forward. Slightly. "Speaking seriously. Thanks again for earlier. You could have just ignored it." "Chill. I don't let people get wrecked right in front of me," Takuto said matter-of-factly, his tone carrying the quiet conviction of someone who'd learned that lesson through fire and trial. Kendo turned from the seat ahead. "Hero attitude." "Human attitude," he countered, a touch sheepish, his cheeks warming not from his quirk this time. In the locker rooms, Takuto changed quickly. His body still emanated subtle heat, but it was manageable, almost invigorating, like the afterglow of a solid workout. He met Kendo and Jiro at the building's exit, the conversation flowing effortlessly as they strolled through Yue's gardens. The late afternoon sun filtered through leaves, casting dappled shadows on the path, while a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the scorched arena they'd left behind. "So, you've been fighting since when?" Kendo asked, genuine curiosity lighting her eyes. "Around 8. Give or take," Takuto replied, hands in pockets. "Helps burn off energy when I get too hot." "I bet. Must be tough not getting frustrated with it," Jiro observed, her jacks swaying as she walked. "Me? Frustrated?" He grinned crookedly. "Never happen." Kendo burst out laughing. "But I'll pretend I believe that." They crossed the final courtyard to the golden arches marking Yue's exit. The wind picked up, whisking away the last remnants of heat clinging to Takuto's skin. He took 2 steps out when, "Taku!" The voice cut through the air, clear and familiar. Takuto halted instantly, a broad smile spreading across his face as he turned. Minutes earlier, with Izuku, Ida, and Uraraka made their way through the faux city's corridors toward the candidates' boarding area. As the adrenaline ebbed, a nagging twinge bloomed behind Izuku's eyes, a subtle but persistent headache that pulsed with every recollection of those sudden speed bursts, compounded by the fatigue from Recovery Girl's healing. His steps felt heavier, the world slightly muffled, but he masked it with a determined smile, unwilling to burden anyone or reveal his vulnerability after such a grueling trial. Still, he tried to keep up the grin not out of pretense, but to savor the camaraderie that had unexpectedly formed amid the chaos. Uraraka, now fully mended thanks to Recovery Girl, though visibly drained by the quirk's stamina-sapping side effect, walked with her hands laced behind her back, her posture relaxed yet buoyant. "You two were amazing back there," she said, glancing between them with genuine admiration. "If it weren't for you, well, things would have gone really wrong." Izuku scratched the back of his neck awkwardly, the motion sending a fresh spike through his temples that he quickly suppressed. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same." Ida raised a hand in a firm, emphatic gesture, his stance as rigid and principled as ever. "I disagree, Midoriya. Many candidates prioritize their own scores. Your choice to halt and assist, even as time dwindled, exemplifies honor and heroic duty." Izuku flushed to his ears, the praise warming him despite the ache. "I just couldn't turn my back." Uraraka's laugh was light, easing the moment. "And I'm truly grateful for that." Walking beside Ida and Uraraka kept Izuku distracted enough to push the throbbing to the background, though occasionally, he'd wince slightly, squeezing his eyes shut for a fraction of a second, hoping it went unnoticed amid the conversation. But Ida caught it, his sharp gaze missing little. "Midoriya, are you all right? Your expression seems strained." Izuku waved it off hastily, forcing a brighter smile. "I'm fine, really. But pushed my quirk a bit at the end." Uraraka tilted her head, concern creasing her brow. "Pushed it too hard?" "No, nothing major. But a little fatigue. And a headache that felt like invisible fingers pressing into his skull," he added silently, rubbing his temple discreetly when they weren't looking. When they reached the boarding area, staff directed them to microbuses shuttling everyone back to UA's main building. Izuku and Ida headed to the male lockers, while Uraraka waved and entered the female ones. In the changing room, Izuku swapped clothes beside Ida. The bespectacled boy folded his torn uniform with meticulous precision, like a ritual of order amid disorder, while Izuku, subtly massaging his throbbing temple, tried to mirror the calm. The cool air helped a tad, but the pulse persisted, a reminder of overexertion. Ida glanced over. "Midoriya, everything truly in order?" Izuku nodded quickly. "Yeah, just got a little excited toward the end of the exam." "That's understandable. Exerting one's quirk under duress incurs wear. But I'm certain you'll excel in the results." Izuku smiled through the discomfort, even as another wave hit, grateful for the encouragement. Outside, they reunited with Uraraka, and the trio walked toward the exit, conversation flowing naturally amid the post-exam buzz. I don't think my points were that high. Uraraka murmured softly, fidgeting with her fingers. But I hope it's enough. They were. Izuku assured her, his voice steady despite the inner throb. I saw how you dropped those robots. That was incredible. Uraraka beamed, cheeks flushing. Ida clasped his hands before his chest. Regardless of outcomes, you both exhibited essential qualities. I'm honored to have met you. Izuku grinned at them, genuine, even as the headache gnawed. The budding friendship felt like a balm, easing the pain just enough. They navigated the grand halls, skirting the reception, and finally reached the monumental exit, the golden arches framing the boundary of UA's grounds. The sky had cleared, sunlight filtering through scattered clouds, while groups of candidates dispersed outside, buzzing with shared stories and weary laughter. Ahead, a few meters away, Izuku spotted a familiar silhouette, relaxed posture, hands in pockets, dark green hair tousled by the breeze. And two girls walking beside him. Takuto had exited a bit earlier, as expected, chatting casually with them, his steps carrying that post-battle fatigue, not exhausted but with the subtle lag of someone who'd burned bright and hot. Even with the persistent throb behind his eyes, Izuku felt an involuntary smile tug at his lips. A warm relief flooded him seeing his brother safe and sound, the bond pulling like an invisible thread. Without thinking, Izuku quickened his pace toward his brother, raising a hand and calling out, "Taku!" Takuto halted instantly, turning with a lopsided grin that lit up his face. He barely took a step when Izuku, eager and unthinking, surged forward. Only for his foot to catch awkwardly on an uneven paved stone, the fatigue betraying him. He stumbled mid-stride, arms flailing as he nearly pitched forward before catching himself in a clumsy recovery. Takuto already had a half-smile cracking across his face at the sight. And a tiny internal alert pinged. His brother's usual energy seemed off, just a touch subdued. Izuku arrived buzzing with excitement, practically vibrating as he closed the distance, his freckled cheeks flushed from the run and the lingering exam high. Finally, the living appear. Takuto teased, crossing his arms and giving his brother a once-over from head to toe, cataloging every subtle shift in posture and expression. Izuku skidded to a stop in front of him, chest heaving but eyes sparkling with unmistakable enthusiasm. "Taku, my quirk evolved too." Takuto raised an eyebrow, genuinely intrigued, his own fatigue momentarily forgotten. "Oh, gonna have to show me that later." Izuku's grin widened until it shifted to curiosity, then soft concern as he scanned his brother in return. "Look, a bit off. You're radiating heat. Did you push too hard?" Takuto let out a short laugh, shoving his hands into his pockets with a dramatic sigh. "I'm good. Got close to my limit. It happens." He tilted his head slightly, zeroing in. "And you're looking like someone kicked you behind the eyes. Headache?" Izuku blinked rapidly, averting his gaze as if he could convince the universe and his brother he was perfectly fine. "It's just fatigue. But I'm okay." "Really?" As the twins traded observations, for onlookers drew closer slowly at first, piecing together the scene, then with clear confusion etching their faces, Kendo and Jiro paused beside Takuto, while Ida and Uraraka hovered just behind Izuku. Kendo whispered first, almost unconsciously aloud. "He mentioned a brother. But I didn't think it'd be a twin. And one so identical." Jiro stared back and forth between Takuto and Izuku, as if witnessing a glitch in reality itself. Uraraka's mouth hung slightly open in surprise. And Ida looked like he'd undergone a complete internal reboot, his usually composed demeanor fracturing under the sheer improbability. Once Takuto and Izuku finally paused their mutual check-in, Ida stepped forward, rigid as ever but with perplexity still evident in his furrowed brow. "Midoriya." Both brothers turned their heads simultaneously. "Yeah," they said in perfect sync. Ida blinked several times, momentarily thrown. "Izuku Midoriya." Izuku perked up in recognition. "Yeah. What's up?" Ida pointed at Takuto, utterly lost. Who is this other young man? Izuku blinked, genuinely puzzled. My brother. Takuto. Didn't know. He glanced at Takuto for confirmation, then back to Ida. I mentioned my brother to you and Uraraka, right? Actually no, Uraraka chimed in promptly. Izuku's eyes widened, shoulders slumping like he'd accidentally knocked over a glass. Sorry. I thought I had. Takuto placed a hand on his shoulder, shaking his head with exaggerated disappointment and a teasing smirk. Not even introducing me to your friends, Aizu. I'm hurt, man. Deeply wounded. Izuku flushed crimson instantly. I just got distracted. Kendo chuckled softly, Jiro covered her mouth to hide a grin, Uraraka laughed awkwardly, and Ida relaxed just enough to resume his impeccable posture. Izuku took a breath, composing himself, and finally handled the formal introductions. Everyone. This is my brother, Takuto Midoriya. Takuto raised a hand in a casual wave. Nice to meet ya. The full round followed. Izuku introduced Ida and Uraraka to Takuto. Kendo and Jiro introduced themselves to Izuku, and Ida, Uraraka, Jiro, and Kendo exchanged quick greetings, all still carrying that air of "I've never seen anything like this" wonder. Conversation flowed naturally, but with a hilarious hitch. Every time someone said Midoriya, both twins turned automatically. After the fourth time, Takuto crossed his arms. Call us by our first names, or no one's surviving this chat. Izuku nodded emphatically. Yeah. Better that way. The girls, especially Jiro and Uraraka, flushed slightly at the informality of Izuku and Takuto. Kendo dove right in without issue, and Ida simply acknowledged it as a new protocol to follow. The group lingered for several minutes, swapping stories about the exam tense moments, funny slip-ups, point tallies with laughter punctuating the air. It felt organic, effortless, a budding connection forming amid shared exhaustion and triumph, the kind of bond forged in the fire of high-stakes trials. Finally, as fatigue truly set in, they exchanged numbers. Takuto passed his phone to Kendo, who keyed in quickly. Jiro did the same, trying to play it cool but with a faint blush tinting her ears. Uraraka beamed ear to ear while adding Izuku and Takuto, and Ida saved each contact with utmost professionalism, treating it like an official dossier. They parted ways at last, with lingering waves and promises to chat soon. Kendo headed off first, Jiro trailing. Uraraka waved with both hands, her smile infectious, and Ida bowed so formally his glasses nearly slipped. When Izuku and Takuto were alone, their energy dipped not into gloom, but into that comfortable, familiar ease only siblings share. Finally, Takuto sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Now I can stop pretending I'm superhuman. Izuku chuckled softly. Me too. My leg's been tingling since that robot explosion almost went numb. They walked side by side to the station, steps sinking without effort, both dragging a bit from the day's toll. Today was insane, huh? Izuku remarked, eyeing the arriving train cars. Absolutely. But we're in this together. Izuku smiled genuinely, weary but content. Yeah. We are. The simple truth eased the lingering ache in his head, turning it into a distant hum as they boarded. The train was nearly full, its gentle sway lulling Izuku deeper into the seat, arms crossed over his chest. Within 5 minutes, his head dipped forward in a short nap, the automatic rest of someone who'd expended every ounce of energy in the last hours. His breathing steady and even, freckled face relaxed in slumber. Takuto watched the landscape blur by the window, trying to ignore the accumulated fatigue and the faint tingling in his arms, like embers cooling after a blaze. Even so, he couldn't stop smiling to himself. The day had been grueling but incredibly good, the kind of day that left you sore but satisfied, with new faces and possibilities lingering in the mind. When the train announced their stop, Takuto nudged his brother's shoulder gently. Aizu, wake up. We're here. Izuku jolted awake with a soft start, blinking slowly as if surfacing from deep waters, his eyes foggy with remnants of sleep. Already? Yeah, Takuto confirmed, chuckling lowly. Come on, before the doors close. Izuku rose groggily, slinging his backpack over his shoulders, and the two descended together. The walk to their building was wrapped in comfortable silence, that sibling quiet where words weren't needed to fill the space, just the rhythm of footsteps on the cooling pavement, the distant hum of city life fading into evening hush. The air was crisp, the street nearly empty, bathed in the warm orange glow of street lamps that stretched their shadows long. They climbed the few flights of stairs to their apartment, Izuku already envisioning the simple dinner their mom usually left prepped for reheating when she got home late. But as Takuto turned the knob and pushed the door open, "Welcome back." The two halted instantly. Inko stood in the entryway, still in parts of her work uniform, her smile radiant and eyes shining with unbridled pride. She shouldn't have been home yet. Normally, she arrived much later. Izuku blinked rapidly. Already here? I thought you'd be home around 6:30, Takuto added, closing the door behind them with a soft click. Inko placed her hands on her hips, the gesture more affectionate than scolding. I asked to leave early today. I wouldn't have forgiven myself if you two came back from the UA exam and I wasn't here to greet you. The brothers exchanged identical glances, a blend of surprise and that deep-seated warmth that only family could evoke, like a hearth igniting in their chests. Inko approached, her maternal gaze scanning them head to toe with that uncanny ability to detect exhaustion before it fully registered. I want to hear everything. Every detail. But first, shower and fresh clothes. You both smell like gunpowder, sweat, and burnt robot. Izuku laughed, a bit embarrassed, scratching his neck. Takuto sniffed his shirt discreetly. Yeah, fair point. And then when you're back, we can talk all about it, she warned playfully, gently ushering them toward the hallway. But before that, she rose on tiptoes, planting a soft kiss on Izuku's forehead. He accepted it instantly, that small, special smile reserved just for her blooming on his face. Then she turned to Takuto. Come here, you two. Takuto backed up a half-inch. I'm sweaty. I don't care. But Takuto. He sighed in defeat, dipping his head just enough and received the kiss with a reluctant warmth, though the faint blush on his cheeks gave away his secret appreciation. There? She said, satisfied. Now go, before I drag you both in there myself. Yes, ma'am, Takuto grumbled, but with a grin. I'm going. Izuku called eagerly, lighter than before. The two vanished down the hall, bickering over who got the shower first, while Inko returned to the couch, her heart full to bursting. When the boys emerged from the bath, hair still damp, in clean clothes smelling of fresh laundry, they settled beside their mom. Takuto lounged casually, while Izuku sat neatly, knees together. Hungry? Inko asked, already rising to serve. A bit, Takuto admitted promptly. Yeah, me too. Izuku agreed, following suit. Inko headed to the kitchen, preparing a quick meal with practiced ease. Soon, she placed sandwiches and fresh juice on the table, simple but hearty, the aroma wafting like a comforting embrace. She joined them as Izuku launched into the story, starting from the exams, beginning the initial confusion, the smaller robots. Takuto interjected here and there, correcting a detail or adding one Izuku had overlooked, their voices weaving together like a well-rehearsed duet. And then there was this giant robot. Izuku continued, gesturing animatedly with his free hand. Giant for real, Takuto confirmed. 0 points. Not even worth fighting for credit. Inko paused mid-bite, eyes widening. 0 points. Yeah, Izuku nodded. It just appeared out of nowhere, wrecking everything. And what did you do? She asked, suspicion creeping in. I ran toward it. Izuku? Inko's hand flew to her chest. You ran toward it? Mom, relax, Takuto said, chuckling. He's in one piece, look. But he might not have been, she countered, fixing Izuku with a worried stare. I know. But someone was trapped, Izuku said softly. I didn't think too hard about it. After a few seconds, he took a breath and continued, I needed to run faster. So I did something different. Different how? Inko pressed. I pushed myself. The two fell silent for a beat. Pushed what? Takuto asked, confused. Myself, Izuku replied. Not an object on me or my clothes. It was like giving small bursts to my own body. Just for instance. To gain speed. Takuto blinked repeatedly. Wait, you've never done that before. Never, Izuku confirmed. It happened in the desperation. I just thought I had to get there. That explains the stumble earlier, Takuto mused thoughtfully. You overdid it. I got a headache after. And felt exhausted, Izuku admitted, rubbing his temple absently as the memory stirred a faint echo of the pain. Inko exhaled deeply, striving for calm. You need to be careful, she said, her tone laced with concern rather than scolding. Promise you won't do that without thinking? I promise, Izuku replied swiftly. Takuto reached over, ruffling his hair deliberately. Still, that was smart. Stop it, Izuku complained, fixing his hair with a pout. The conversation lightened after that. They shared about the people they'd met, names dropping with small impressions. I made some friends, Izuku said warmly. Me too, Takuto added. Seems like there's a lot of interesting people. I'm glad to hear that, Inko replied, her smile soft and relieved. She'd noticed for a while now that the boy's relationship with Katsuki had shifted from childhood closeness to something more distant, so hearing about new bonds forming was a quiet balm to her worries. Mid-conversation, Inko leaned on her elbows. And when do the results come out? Probably in a week, Izuku answered almost immediately. Barely had the words left his mouth when both their phones buzzed. Simultaneously on the table. The synced vibration drew instant attention, and they exchanged a quick, puzzled glance. Hey, Inko said gently but firmly, no phones during the meal. Sorry, Mom, Izuku replied on behalf of both, assuming the blame without a second thought. It was just a new group chat from one of their fresh friends. Nothing urgent. The phones returned face down to the table, and the topic shifted seamlessly. Afterward, they migrated to the couch, settling in for a relaxed evening watching some light program with their moms simply enjoying the moment, the day's weight lifting in the comfort of home.